Well, it's exactly 22 minutes past the top of the hour. Apologies for stepping in a little bit late, but we are here all the same. It's my hope that you had a great night and looking forward to a great day. My name is Lela, and this is Morning Cafe right here on TV47. So much lined up for you, including looking at what way forward now that we officially have our leaders. We have the president, and indeed looking forward to see how he's going to craft his government, but most importantly looking forward to tomorrow, where we'll have the swearing in of members of parliament as they await to now serve the people. That is in the 13th parliament, and of course so much lined up as pertaining to this. We'll be looking at all that to make sure that we understand what it is that we expect from them as the people, and what then they plan for the people of Kenya in terms of development. Indeed, a new dispensation that, of course, brings some essence of hope, and hope indeed is what we look forward to as we see whether then the current government will make good their promises, the promises that they have been making to the people for years in terms of the bottoms-up approach, a different economic model that seeks to make sure that every other person that is on the lowest of the cadres then is able to enjoy the benefits of course, payment of tax, and that we all grow together. This, according to Deputy President William Ruto, and now the President-elect. That is from that time that he was campaigning up until now. We need to understand just how different would this model be to give us that economic emancipation. And so that's what we'll be looking at. We'll be engaging members of parliament that are elect, and we get to hear what plans they have in store. That is in regards to the 13th parliament. Two of them are finding their way back. They successfully defended their bids. One of them is coming in for the very first time, and also we'll be having a political commentator, Onchari, who also will be putting them to task as to the promises then that they present to the people. So before we get to that, important that we take a look at what the papers detail this morning briefly. And it's about the United Kingdom, that is pertaining to the international scene, where it is officially a bye-bye for Boris Johnson. The truth is that Truss is now the British Prime Minister, and that is as a story captured on page 11 and 18 of the People Daily. And we have the People Daily, page 11 and 18, speaking of this, and also this story finds its on the Standard newspaper, that is page 32, and equally on the Daily Nation as well is a story that has been captured on the international scene, as of course on the front page and expounded on page 29, as you can see right there. We also have a different one, and we'll be looking at this and how then the United Kingdom continues to enjoy that coexistence with the international community, that is on the questions of integration. So we'll be taking a look at what has been captured on the front page again of the People Daily, and looking at the first story. That is a peak junior secondary now. Magoha rules out extending September 10th deadline for pioneer CBC candidates to select the school of their choice. That as captured on page 2, and we'll be looking at as we continue with the broadcast. That is a story that is also very crucial, especially at this moment where we want to forge forward as to the question of the education. And remember, during their campaigns, the team of Kenya Kwanza at some point in time have faulted the coming in of the CBC, saying that this is coming in well, as Kenyans are not so well prepared as to the same. And so we seek to see whether then they will maintain it, or there's going to be some essence of adjustments, in as much as the Ministry of Education has maintained that it would be that until all through. There's no turning back. That is on the question of the CBC. And away from it, it is that scramble for the speaker's job, the next race, who will get speaker's job. This is one of the stories that has been captured, and we have seen different figures presenting their papers. Others in the race, former nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura for Senate Speaker. We have seen Kithure Murugi and Karugo Wagathangwa for Senate Deputy Speaker, Okongo Mogeni for Deputy Senate Speaker, as well as Farah Maalim for Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. And in all 19 candidates, they want to be a Speaker of the National Assembly, while 17 are eyeing the Senate Speaker seat. On this other side, also those faces that have gone for this top job or for this position at the level of the houses. Well, Kenneth Marende, fronted by Azimio One Kenya for Senate seat. He has described himself as an interesting candidate for both political sides. We have seen Hassan Omar, fronted by Kenya Kwanza, and of course he replaced Emerson Kingi at the last minute after losing the gubernatorial bid. And also Gladys Boshule, fronted by Kenya Kwanza, seeking to be Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Azimio was yet to pick one who they are going to present. And the main faces, Moses Wetangula from Kenya Kwanza and Kalonzo Musyoka of Azimio. And House, by law, Azimio has numbers to elect powerful speaker, but politically, Kenya Kwanza has an edge after wooing independence. A battle goes to the floor, and this is a story captured on page 4 of the People Daily, one of the key stories that we'll be looking at as we also engage these members of parliament to know how well they prepare themselves. It is the speaker, or these speakers are at the heart of every activity in the House of Parliament, and therefore just how will they be able to handle this, and this one, and who are these ones that will be lucky to be elected by these members of parliament? That is on a secret ballot. On the Daily Nation, and of course the biggest story of the day, Western Rift and Mountain bargained for specific key positions at the cabinet, and we see scramble for hustler cake, or for these particular sports on slots in government. We see the faces that are eyeing the cabinet. Of course, Musalia Mudavadi had already bargained his prior to this arrangement, or prior to them garnering this position. It was clear, and of course in a written document, that if there's going to be a Kenya Kwanza government, that his is going to be a chief prime minister position. That is a specific position crafted, first of all, to appreciate that aspect of loyalty. And in this, after the earthquake that saw Musalia Mudavadi and Ford Kenya's Moses Wetangula shifting camp for them to come and form the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. And these others are the likes of David Chichir, and Justin Muturi, Kithure Kindiki, Alfred Mutua, Moses Kuria, Babu Namwamba, Josephat Nanok, Salim Vuria, Paris Tobiko. These ones, have been governors also, and their last bid now looking forward to occupy these key positions in the cabinet. This courtesy of the fact that they have been great loyals to the deputy president then, and now the president-elect, and therefore we're looking forward to see what it would be like for the Kenya Kwanza government. And also on the question of the speakers, exactly what I have touched on while looking at the People Daily. The key faces, as you can evidently see there, we're looking at 50%. The portion of cabinet slots Ruto promised will be filled by women, and also the constitution limits cabinet secretary positions to around 22. Just how is it going to create a balance on this, as very many of them who are his staunch supporters and have been instrumental in his bid, then are looking forward to get to be rewarded, spoiled for choice, as they would call it. And as the dust then settles on this Supreme Court victory confirming his election as president, it is going to be William Ruto embarking on the journey of crafting government that not only has a capacity to push his agenda, but also fulfills the promise he has made to politicians who backed his campaign, were clever enough to extract promises of government that is to him. And so we'll be looking forward to see how then he crafts the same that has captured on the front page. And also it finds its way on the Standard newspaper, a conversation that will on. And a very popular face in the country, may his soul continue to rest in eternal peace, passed on in 2009, year when Cardinal Otunga journey to sainthood began. That is after the Archbishop of Nairobi, John Cardinal Njue, successfully petitioned the Vatican, or the Vatican-based congregation, for the causes of saints. Saint Otunga journey so far. Archbishop Philip Anyolo Catholic faithful to pray for the confirmation of miracle linked to Cardinal Otunga, who died 19 years ago. That also has been captured on the front page. This is very, very important, especially for the Catholic and saints and congregants, and therefore we seek to see more on that, as captured on page 7. Students stuck in Saudi Arabia flies in after rescue. Diana Chepkemoi, the university student that is, who says she was starved and abused by her employer in Riyadh, back to safety of her Bomet home. Indeed, that is really, really great. Of course, Kenyans, we appreciate the fact that we all came out to make sure that then she is lucky enough to come home. But she comes with bad reports as to the suffering of our girls, of those ones that, you know, travel abroad in search for greener pastures. I hope that indeed the government will look to that, as they also have this conversation with them that are on these other nations. Johnson urges tourists to support trust in farewell. Outgoing Prime Minister says the country is going through tough times and his successor needs all the support she can get. That is captured on page 29. One of the stories that we began with, also captured on the People Daily and as well on the Standard newspaper. The front page finds its way there. New UK leader Truss takes over, a story captured on the World page 32. And on the other side, Uhuru's puzzling cold reception to Deputy President William Ruto's win. That is one thing that also we seek to understand, as of course captured on page 2, as we look forward to this moment of celebration in that process of swearing in Deputy President William Ruto, and definitely now the President-elect Dr. William Samoei Ruto will be the country's president after being sworn in officially on the 13th. That is next week, Tuesday, and all systems go. Plans are underway to make sure that this is going to be a smooth and, you know, a very instrumental celebration moment for the country. And we'll be having lots of heads of states from different parts, you know, coming into the country, and also representatives. So far, about 45, you know, reported to have confirmed that they will be in attendance, and therefore history will be written then, as President Uhuru Kenyatta will be performing that duty, perhaps his very last duty as head of state, of then according us that peaceful transition. But just why the silence in terms of even celebrating and appreciating his deputy? One of the things that many have asked, and of course we have seen him outrightly, you know, presenting his bid to support the right on Odinga for the presidency. Also inside Ruto's government, Touch Balance Act, and President-elect faces the Herculean task of making a clean break from an outgoing administration, which he...
Do you want to have fun and learn? Well, here on Kids on the Block, we have so much to offer.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent.
Join MC Madenge and MC MJ.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent. I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent. I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. The whole business for Untold stories.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent. I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza.
Well, apologies for that bit of a hitch, and we forge forward. A day after the Supreme Court upheld the general election presidential results, religious leaders from various parts of the country have lauded the Supreme Court for what they said was managing a successful election. They are now calling upon Kenyans to maintain calmness during the transition period.
As some Kenyans continue to celebrate the Supreme Court ruling for upholding the win of William Ruto as the president-elect, the church has come out to laud the judgment while urging all Kenyans to accept the Supreme Court ruling for the interest of peace and economic prosperity in the nation.
Sasa vile mahakama imepitisha ya kwamba His Excellency Deputy President sasa au aapishwe, tunataka kutoa mwito kwa Wakenya wote ya kwamba tushikilie amani.
Speaking in his office, Bishop John Ole Mpurukoi of PAG Church in Narok County has further called on the President-elect William Ruto to focus on uniting Kenyans, especially those that voted for him and those that didn't.
Na wote sasa ni watu wako. Kwa hivyo tunakuomba usibebe mtu yoyote, hata tunajua kuna wale wamezungumza mambo mabaya, kuna wale wamesema hutakuwa, kuna wale wamesema hutafaulu, na sasa kasi tunaomba ya kwamba, mimi naomba ya kwamba wewe msamee kila mtu, kwa sababu watu wote ni watu wako, haijalishi ni dini, haijalishi ni kabila gani.
Elsewhere in Kiambaa constituency in Kiambu County, religious leaders have expressed their confidence towards the President-elect William Ruto in fulfilling and working upon his manifesto that he promised to Kenyans during his campaign trails.
We made a memorandum with our President, William Ruto, and I'm assuring you, William Ruto does not lie. He is not a conman. He does not practice deceit. He is going to fulfill all what he promised.
They have at the same time prevailed upon Kenyans to pray for the new team of leadership as it prepares to execute their promises, particularly during these harsh economic times.
Like we all know, the economy is down. There are so many things which were working against our nation. They really have a challenge. I know they have given themselves to fulfill their promise, but I also pray that we also pray for them, pray for divine enablement. They have acknowledged that their victory was God's doing, so that even in executing the promise, maybe by the help of the Holy Spirit and God, together with their commitment to the same.
Paul Munio, TV 47.
All right, a day after the Apex Court's judgment that upheld President-elect William Ruto's win, the 4 dissenting commissioners who played a central role in the just settled presidential petition have cleared the air, saying they respect the decision of the judges of the Supreme Court of Kenya. The 4 commissioners, led by Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera through a press release to the media, also welcomed Chairperson Wafula Chebukati's statement that called on the 4 to abide by the rule of law in executing their mandate.
Even as the country starts to slowly get back to normalcy after a grueling political season, the season might still be on at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC's boardroom. With the 4 dissenting commissioners now coming out to clear the air on their previous move that was at the center of the just settled presidential petition at the Supreme Court of Kenya. On Monday, the court rubbished the evidence provided by the 4 commissioners that alleged that the commission's chair, Wafula Chebukati, didn't involve the 4 in the verification process of the presidential results. A ruling within the final judgment that vindicated the commission's chairman, Wafula Chebukati.
The current dysfunctionality at the commission impugns the state of its corporate governance, but does not affect the conduct of the 2022 election.
Led by the IEBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, the 4 have welcomed the verdict of the court which upheld William Ruto's win. In a press release by the 4 commissioners, Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera and Commissioners Irene Masit, Francis Wanderi and Justus Nyang'aya, they thanked the Apex Court judges on the unanimous decision that they reached at. Further, the 4 commissioners welcomed the commission's chairperson Wafula Chebukati's statement issued to the media, which called on them to follow the rule of law in executing their mandate as IEBC commissioners. Joash Onsare, TV 47, Nairobi.
And President Uhuru has gazetted the first sitting of newly elected members of Parliament for September 8th. The Parliament's buildings. The sitting will take place from 9 a.m. where all the 290 members of the National Assembly and 47 senators will be sworn in. Flora Limuki reports.
30 days after the election, the outgoing president is expected to gazette the notice of the date for the first sitting of the new House. In respect to this, outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta has gazetted a notice dated Tuesday, September 5th, that the 290 members of Parliament and 47 senators will take their oath of office on Thursday during the first sitting. In the notice, Uhuru states that, and I quote, "In exercise of the powers conferred by Article 126(2) of the Constitution of Kenya, I, Uhuru Kenyatta, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, appoint that the first sitting of the Senate shall be held at the main Parliament buildings in the Senate Chamber, Nairobi, on the 8th September 2022 at 9 a.m. During the first sitting of the House, the Clerk of the National Assembly and Senate shall administer the oath of affirmation of office to members elect present in accordance with Article 74 of the Constitution. Article 74 of the Constitution states that before assuming state office, acting in a state office, or performing any functions of a state office, a person shall take and subscribe the oath or affirmation of office in the manner and form prescribed by the third schedule or under the Act of Parliament.
We will be having pre-swearing-in sessions, which we will hold within the precincts of Parliament, within the main Parliament buildings in Nairobi, on Wednesday, the 7th of September, starting from 9 o'clock and running throughout the day.
Standing Order 3 of the National Assembly Standing Orders states that, and I quote, on the first sitting of a new House pursuant to the President's notification under Article 126(2) of the Constitution, the clerk shall read the notification of the President as published in the Gazette, lay a list of names of persons elected as members on the table of the House, administer the oath or affirmation of office provided for the third schedule to the Constitution to all members present in the House. The Gazettement is critical to the business of the House since it's at the first sitting that senators and members of Parliament elect are sworn in. This is the 13th Parliament. Flora Limuki, TV 47.
And over 40 Kenyans have expressed interest in the Speaker's position in the 13th Parliament ahead of the first sitting Thursday, when lawmakers will vote for the Speaker. Among those that have picked application papers for the third in command are Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula, who is fronted by Kenya Kwanza for the Speaker National Assembly, and Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who is fronted by Azimio One Kenya. And as Elizabeth Mutuku now reports, a section of Kenya Kwanza members have expressed dissatisfaction in Wetangula's candidature.
Political divides have less than 48 hours to lobby for their preferred candidates for the Speaker's position in the National Assembly and Senate in the 13th Parliament, which commences on Thursday. However, a battle of numbers is expected on Thursday between Azimio la Umoja and Kenya Kwanza in their first sitting, Azimio One Kenya having fronted Wiper boss Kalonzo Musyoka for the Speaker of National Assembly ahead of tomorrow's parliamentary group meeting, which is expected to stamp authority and commencement of intense whipping and lobbying. Kenya Kwanza has fronted Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula for the Speaker's space in the National Assembly, though some members from the coalition have expressed their reservations on his candidature, and this is likely to tilt the question should they vote otherwise in a secret ballot exercise. Azimio has 168 members, while Kenya Kwanza has 158 members as per political parties list. However, with friendly parties and MPs voted independent candidates shifting to the Ruto-led coalition, the outfit might control the House. Grand Dream Party has one member of Parliament, while National Agenda Party has one, just like the Ordinary People Empowerment Union. There are 12 members of the House elected on an independent ticket, most of whom have already moved to Kenya Kwanza. Kanus William Kamketa has also shifted loyalty, while former Governor Emerson Kingi's party PAR has 4 members, while Maendeleo Chapchap has 2 members of Parliament. The two parties already are part of Kenya Kwanza.
And we want to have a Speaker of the National Assembly who understands both our legislative and economic agenda of the Kenya government. And because Wetangula was at the center of drafting the economic agenda of this country when we were moving around this country, we believe that he is the best person to be the Speaker of the National Assembly. And apart from engaging in extensive lobbying across the political divide, you know, we are also a team that believes in prayers. We are a team that believes that God is the only person who puts someone in leadership position.
The battle in the Senate Speaker's position is not any different on matters numbers, with Kenya Kwanza fronting former Kilifi Governor Emerson Kingi, while Azimio is backing former National Assembly Speaker Kenneth Marende, who says is up to the task from experience on the job. Senate Speaker's post has attracted 18 Kenyans, who include Kiambu Senator Karugo Athangwa, former nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura, among others.
I'm an interesting candidate to both sides, so I can see that I will eat into the other side as well. I'm cross-cutting. I'm a Kenyan. A lot of Kenyans are happy with the way I do things. I think they like my philosophy of life. They like my approach to ideology. So it looks fine.
The National Assembly Speaker's position has attracted more than 40 Kenyans who have already picked papers before the deadline. Some of them include Kevin Mbate and William Washira, who have missed the requisite 20 signatures to second their candidature on the job as per constitution.
Masomo niko nayo kwa sababu one qualification ambao nimeona ukuwe umequalify kwa ukuwe na zile qualification kama mbunge. Na tayari nilikuwa nimesimama kiti cha ubunge kule Gilgil. Kitu cha pili ni ujue studying orders za bunge venye zinaendeleshwa na venye zinatumika katika bunge. Kitu ya tatu ujue katiba ya Kenya.
First epic battle is expected on Thursday when members of National Assembly and Senate will be picking their speakers for the 13th Parliament. Elizabeth Mutuko, TV 47 Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
And that forms the basis of our conversation this morning. Alongside the next story, President Uhuru Kenyatta will on Tuesday hand over instruments of power to President-elect William Ruto, despite the former coming out to campaign against his deputy of almost 10 years in a bid to block him, that is, from succeeding him as the next president. Moge William paints us a picture of an uncomfortable relationship between the two at the tail end of their 2 terms.
The biggest political statement made leading to and after the recently concluded general election is the complete shift from the camaraderie that both President Uhuru Kenyatta and his principal assistant Deputy President William Ruto publicly displayed during their first term in office. Monday's judgment by a 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court confirming that indeed the shift was a real one, with President Kenyatta failing in the management of his own succession. The dust may have settled, but many observers are still processing the fallout between the once close allies who formed a formidable political force before the March 2013 general election, as they faced crimes against humanity cases at the International Criminal Court. The shift has also moved from how the two relate politically to just how they communicate, with outgoing President Uhuru tellingly choosing to address the nation via recorded statement as opposed to a live televised address, and failing to acknowledge President-elect William Ruto's win or even congratulating him despite earlier congratulating elected leaders in the recently concluded general polls. These coming hours after Ruto claimed that he had not spoken to his boss for months.
The process of handing over is in progress through the Assumption of Office Committee.
The president-elect, however, playing down the issue of the tension between them.
But shortly I will be putting a call to him so that we can have a conversation on the process of transition.
Observers opine that all went south for the two after the 2017 general election, following the newfound political truce between President Kenyatta and Azimio leader Raila Odinga, which culminated to the famous March 9, 2018 handshake. What later followed was a simmering tension between the former political friends, with Ruto complaining of being sidelined by his boss.
Now we have a president-elect. The easiest thing for him to do, and the most honorable thing for him to do, was to accept that the president-elect is now William Ruto, to congratulate him, to wish him well, to show him around State House.
And in 2020, President Kenyatta will officially break ranks with Ruto, with the latter going ahead to form the United Democratic Alliance, a party that propelled him to clinch the top seat and become the 5th president in an election whose final results and processes were contested by 7 petitioners, among them Raila Odinga.
The president said he would rather work for his legacy in the second term, and he got into a handshake. And the president-elect then got into trying to tell the people that they needed to go back to their dreams of the Big Four.
And Ruto is now president because Kenyans have also spoken, and we believe that is how things should go. Kenya belongs to all of us, and it is in our interest to see that transition is smooth.
With all said and done, transition of power is expected between President Uhuru Kenyatta and President-elect William Ruto, who is set to serve the nation as 5th president. Moige William, TV47, Nairobi.
Thanks, Moige, for that. Now, President-elect William Ruto's election victory has been hailed as historic for a first-timer who beat the odds to ascend to the country's presidency. Ruto, who styled himself as a hustler, a Kenyan slang for a commoner during the campaigns, overcame political obstacles, beating powerful political families. But what does his win mean to his hustler support base, the economy, and Kenya's foreign policy? Our senior political affairs reporter, Polo Kamau, reports.
The confirmation of President-elect William Ruto by the country's Supreme Court has not only upset the country's power matrix, dictated by the Kenyatta, Moi and Odinga families, but will probably inspire hope to millions of his followers by showing them that anything is possible.
They have not only voted for me, but they have opened doors and gates for their own children in every village, in every neighborhood, knowing very well that their children as well can become leaders.
We have for once a president who has worked his way up. One thing is that William Ruto has never lost an election.
A first-timer who beat the odds to win his first presidential contest. All eyes are on the president-elect, who outsmarted his opponents, among them outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta, who, according to observers, mobilized state machinery to frustrate his presidential bid, ending in ugly public spats.
Ruto says he will not revenge, and Gachagua says, but if you look at their language, body language and the words coming from them, you see people who are still bitter. If you are not going to do things to people, you don't even say it. You just put that behind you and move on. But if you say, I will not do this, and I look at your language, although there is solace in the knowledge that, so just what can you do?
Ruto has assured his opponents, including President Uhuru Kenyatta, that he will seek no revenge amid questions on the acrimonious end of the Uhuruto era during the duo's second term in office.
We are not going to run this country by looking at the rearview mirror. We want to focus ahead. Those who tormented us will carry that shame with them. That shame that they already have is enough. When President Uhuru Kenyatta exercised his democratic right to support Raila Odinga, we had no problem at all with that. But we did not know that he would use state power to try and intimidate and force people to support Raila Odinga.
This is on the backdrop of a seismic shift of political allegiances, with some would-be opposition politicians trooping to Ruto's camp, raising fears of a moribund opposition. Ruto's victory will be put to test by millions of his supporters who believed in his hustler dream through a bottom-up economic model and who expect him to address the expanding public debt, high inflation, and youth unemployment. During the August 9 election campaigns, Ruto took an antagonistic stance towards Beijing, threatening to deport Chinese nationals and cutting off Kenya ties with China over the rising debt that Kenyatta used to finance mega projects.
I suspect the West is supporting Ruto and supported him in this campaign so that they may
push China out of Kenya and ultimately out of Africa, and so that China may have less impact. For that reason, the West, which I suspect has been supporting Ruto in this election, they could bail him out.
Apul Kamau, TV47.
Exactly 1 minute past 7 a.m. Apollo Kamau will be looking at that story as well as we get to loop in the gentlemen that joined me for the discussion this morning. We're having Honorable Member of Parliament-elect Kasim Sawa Tandaza, Honorable Member of Parliament-elect Jimmy Gakuya, as well as Honorable Member of Parliament-elect Bisau Kakai, and equally governance expert and political commentator Oyeyo Ochari. That is after the short break.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians,
kitulizo kamili, and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming and even how they continue to penetrate the market and overcome the challenges.
Catering business, you need licenses.
Hapa, the reason why nilieka goose na si ducks. Goose, they are very easy to maintain.
A lot of farmers keep on calling, inquiring whether you're supposed to raise some seeds in the nursery or you're supposed to do them directly in the field.
The greenhouse helps us control the temperature because the temperature needs to be between 28 to 32 degrees.
Walk this journey with us every Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
It has been 26 years of
It's no secret, construction ain't cheap. But how do we make it affordable? Different individuals are finding ways of cutting down cost by use of pre-stressed slabs other than reinforced concrete, recycling plastics to make pavers.
The brick is stronger, it's cheaper, and it's lighter.
And recycling wastewater in your household.
What happens to my waste from the washroom, the solid waste? All that can break down.
Those are just but a few. Every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. we talk construction.
There's no alpha without an omega. There's no lead without any followers. No man is an island. We need each other. We need this conference.
We say it, we do it, we act it.
Kama una mpenzi wako, kila siku kama walivyosema, kila siku maishi mapenzi.
We don't toe the line, we set the standard.
We don't eat the grass, we lead the pack. As an alpha male, you're also a leader. Not to just women, friends, and family, but to everyone else you've never met before.
We are the beauty, the spice, and the brains. The men's conference where men become alpha males.
And you can catch us every
Starting this September at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, the Realtor brings it.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza. You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. Briefly, we pick this story and then we introduce our guest as a section of Kenyans continue to celebrate William Ruto. That is after the Supreme Court upheld his win. Leaders across the world have congratulated his win, further commending Kenya for conducting a peaceful campaign and subsequent election. They have pledged to work with the new Kenyan government and strengthen relationships between their countries and Kenya. Chepto Boit with the details.
Different organizations and presidents from different states have joined Kenya in celebrating President-elect William Ruto's win.
This is a unanimous decision of the court, and we make the following orders. We declare the election of the first respondent as president-elect to be varied under Article 143 of the Constitution.
Embassies and high commissions in Kenya have issued a joint statement congratulating President-elect William Ruto after the Supreme Court upheld his August 9th victory. While celebrating Ruto, the envoys have acknowledged the contribution of Raila Odinga to Kenya's democratic evolution. They have commended Kenya for a peaceful campaign period, tallying transparency and formal dispute mechanisms. African Union Commission's chairperson Moussa Faki has lauded Raila Odinga for respecting the Supreme Court's ruling while congratulating William Ruto. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has also sent a congratulatory message to William Ruto, saying that she is ready to work with him in strengthening the relationship of the two nations. Burundi President Evariste Ndayishimiye has reiterated Ruto's win, terming his leadership as a cornerstone for reinforcement of historic relations. In a phone call, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, while congratulating the president-elect, said he is looking forward to strengthening strategic partnership in advancing the East African Community EAC agenda. The U.S. Secretary General Anthony Blinken says he is looking forward to strengthening the long-standing relation with the new government. Chepto Boit, TV 47, Nairobi.
All right, and yes, it's now time that we get the honor of introducing the gentleman that I have in studio, Honorable Kasim Sawa Tandaza, Member of Parliament elect for Matuga. It is just a day, actually, not even a day, hours to the swearing-in process, and officially they become Member of Parliament, successfully, defending his bid. Asante sana Mheshimiwa for finding time.
It's always a pleasure.
Kwema Matuga.
kwema kabisa.
It looks like you really did them well. The last time I was there, indeed, the people of Matuga are extremely happy with your performance, not just back at home, courtesy of the lobbying and all that, but importantly at the level of Parliament in terms of representation, and therefore perhaps that's why you find your way back.
It's a promise, and I always keep my promises.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, another one who managed to successfully, defend his bid is none other than Honorable Jimmy Gakuya, Member of Parliament-elect of Embakasi North. Mheshimiwa Bazu, good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
You well?
I'm well.
And like I told you before, the election time, I managed to traverse the different parts of Embakasi North, and true to it, Bazu was the name that was being called. And I guess people like you so much so, it looks like you do a lot of things for them. I keep asking, what is this that members of Parliament do different away from their mandate? Because we understand what their mandate then calls for. So, any handouts?
Reader, you have to be wise as a reader, because at least once the Constitution has only given you 3 laws, then you have to get out of that box and make sure that you outreach other areas that are not well represented. Because in case there are issues that you think that actually the county governments are the one entrusted to, and they are not taken care of, then you cannot watch your people suffering. You must look ways and means to make sure that at least you make sure you fix the deficits where they are.
All right.
Probably those are the areas that of concern that people think that we cannot do this year.
Right. And I see strategically you have brought us the cape of UDA, just that you've written, it is written Bazu. So we don't know whether it's Bazu or UDA, and I don't know whether we're going to run with it to the end of the show. But that my producer will advise. All the same, the campaign is over.
Yes,
it's time to work.
It's time to work.
Yes,
and I think the gowns now have no meaning.
Really? Oh, really? Well, we'll get to know about that as we continue. And Honorable Member of Parliament-elect for Kiminini constituency for the first time. It's an honor to have you, Karibu Sana. This gentleman will tell you how tough it is in that house. The last time I had them, they kept on saying that, there's been a lot of interference by the executive. I don't know whether they'll be speaking different in the 13th Parliament. And perhaps just to keep them to loop, they say that the 12th Parliament really did not perform well. I hope this time around, okay, not really did not perform well, but did not perform to expectation. The way they're looking at me, it's as if I said something wrong. So let me just adjust my language a bit. But yes, it's good to have you.
Thank you, Linda. Good to be here.
Karibu Sana. And in a bit, we'll be having governance experts as well as political commentator Onchari joining us also for the very same conversation. It's all about the swearing in of the members of Parliament that is slated for tomorrow, with all these adjustments on the allowances, on the salaries, with so much expectation from the 12th Parliament to this one, drawing parallels just to get to know what is the way forward. And with a new government, a new face, that is the UDA, Kenya Kwanza government, we certainly look forward to see lots and lots of representation and changes, and so much so oversight for the people of Kenya. First and foremost, the last time you were here, the ruling had been made?
Not yet.
Not just yet, yeah? So I think it's only fair that we allow ourselves a chance to say congratulations to the president-elect. We start with you, Tandaza. You put up a fight, a successful one for that matter.
Well, this was the happiest moment of my life and of Matuga people. Why? 2 fundamental issues. That for the first time, every Kenyan feels that his or her vote counted. From the county to the national and to the presidential vote. Remember, we approached this vote with a lot of question marks, that somewhere some people are organizing to decide who are going to be the leaders of this country. That was in everybody's mind. But thank God, up to the 9th of August and up to the Supreme Court, that came to pass that the Kenyan vote, whoever has his or her vote, once casted, counted and announced, that is the final bill. And I think that is the happiest moment for every Kenyan and for every leader. I believe this time we would expect very few petitions. Really, we would expect very few petitions. They will be there, but most likely they'll be very few, because it was just that transparent. So far, nobody has complained that the votes which were announced at the polling station were different from the ones announced at the tallying center, right from the county, the county assembly. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that we have a president who people voted for, I voted for, and that gives me the next level of my happiness, that at least this time around, I have a president who got my vote consciously, with expectations, knowing what we'll expect out of the president, and this is His Excellency William Ruto. And we expect him, from his track record, to actually walk the talk. We are in a deep hole economically. We've discussed this, and he has a blueprint. He's gone around. He went around all the counties, literally, in this country, picking up salient issues peculiar to each county. And I think that is the highest moment, that you are going now to have a government which will be running its affairs based on the peculiar needs of every county. What can be done in that county to uplift the living standards of the people at the bottom? And I think that will be the paradigm shift this time along. So, well, the work begins, and it's a lot of work, but I believe right from us as parliamentarians and at the highest level where we are having our president, we are up to the task, Linda.
All right.
Yeah.
And yes, before we get to hear what Honorable Jimmy Gakuya has to say, then we come to you. Okay. Finally, we have a president. It is time to forge forward. Would you confidently say that indeed that was the voice of the people, the voice of God, contrary to what your party leader or the coalition leader then would say, that in as much as I agree to what it is that the Supreme Court has made as a verdict and judgment, I do not subscribe to that?
Okay. First of all, Linda, thank you very much for getting us here. I take this opportunity also to congratulate His Excellency President William Samoei Ruto. What I would say is the clock has started ticking. The 5 years clock has started ticking.
Yeah.
So it's time now to get down to the job and start delivering on the promises that were made. Expectations, fairness in the distribution of resources. That's quite expected. On the issue of devolution, what we're looking forward, I know that there was quite an opposition on the BBI. And one of the issues that came up was the issue of distribution of resources to the county, where constitutionally we're looking at a maximum of 35%. As it is now, it's hardly 15% of what is being given to the counties. So we expect that having opposed the BBI, that it's an administrative, sort of move to ensure that there is a 35% sent to the counties. What we expect now is to fast track from the current government and to see that actually more resources are taken to the counties, and not just to the counties, but also looking at the CDF kit. We expect that also, first starting with the Hustler Fund that was promised. We expect that probably to be done within the 100 days. So we'll be looking forward to see, how fast His Excellency implements that. And we as parliamentarians, we are looking forward to that 100 million per constituency in terms of the Hustler Fund.
Okay.
Secondly, the CDF itself, we expect also, I'm informed from our side talk with Bazu mwenzangu wa Nairobi. We've had a discussion that already they had ascended, the president, actually the outgoing president, had already ascended to that bill of doubling the CDF. So we expect to do that because in our last discussion, you remember, and from my survey, the money that gives the first impact to the mwananchi down there is the CDF. So already on that ascended bill of doubling the CDF, we expect also that the president, His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Ruto, quickly ascends to that, plus the Hustler Fund, so that we can get down to business. Okay. But most important, fair distribution of resources, both those who voted for His Excellency the President, even those who didn't vote. But I know, having been on his side before, having worked with him as his advisor on infrastructure, energy and ICT,
right.
He was traversing the entire country without really caring that this is the people who voted maybe for the Jubilee administration, they didn't. So I expect to see a lot of fairness in the resource distribution, and most important, fast tracking, bringing in more money at the ground level through the Hustler Fund, also the devolution amount, increasing from that bare, hardly 15% to 35%, and most important also implementing the bill that had been ascended to of doubling the CDF.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll be coming to you, Honorable Tandaza, to get to understand some more of what this Hustler Fund then is all about, but not before we allow Honorable Gakuya as well to make his submissions as to congratulating the President-elect and equally put up a great fight right from the word go. If there are people who've been diehards of the Deputy President and now the President-elect from day one, that is under the UDA party, then it has to be Honorable Jimmy Gakuya. And true to it, you put up a fight, a successful one, as we can evidently see.
Thank you, Linda. And my take on this is that first and foremost, I would like to congratulate Kenyans all over who did participate in this August 9th election. Despite that the turnout was a bit low, Kenyans woke up early in the morning and put up their decisions by electing the 6 ballot that were enlisted for leadership in this country. I congratulated them very much that actually it was only themselves who have been entitled by our Supreme Law to cast doubt between the contestants, and at least they made a decision to make Kenya going forward. Let me say, this particular election was not easy either, and before I congratulated my president, I will say that in fact it has been a long journey and many handles on the way, but I thank God that at least Kenya now, where we are, we have a president-elect who is just about to swear into office. It has been tidy, and many tides and winds have been blowing, and I can tell you, it's only God who has made us to be here, and I can thank God because for sure, this journey has been very tedious. I would say it was not easy, and that's why most of us who took a position and those early days to support William Ruto actually met a lot of issues, and I don't want to discuss them here, but at least we walked a very tough journey. I would say, Kenyans, you have decided, and you have made us happy, because we sold, we came out and we sold our blueprint, and the hustler and bottom up. Together, Kenyans were able to borrow that particular narrative, and they were able to support us to the end. I would just want to salute hustlers wherever they are, and I'm happy that they stood with us at all the levels of ups and downs. Let me take this opportunity now to congratulate the President-elect and his deputy for now being assured that actually they were being legally, fairly elected, and that now it's only 2, 3, 4 days to come to materialize their swearing in. And I would say Kenyans has a lot of expectation because we did promise a lot, and I am sure that Kenya Kwanza government is capable, and I'm sure anybody who has a doubt that this particular government will not succeed is above us. And I will tell you, I'm sure that William Ruto and his team, they are very serious to make sure that actually they deliver their promises to Kenyans. And the only way that we can be able to give Kenyans what we can say back to them is service. And I'm sure that we are ready for that particular journey to make sure that actually the resources are well distributed and Kenyans will be seeing value of their money.
You know, we are not talking about a different William Ruto. We're talking about William Ruto, who was part and parcel of the previous government. And sometimes they would say birds of a feather flock together. And therefore, they have flocked together with President Uhuru Kenyatta before. We're not saying that it was terrible, totally terrible with the Jubilee government, but Kenyans will tell you they were a bit disappointed as to what it is that the Jubilee government has done because of the promises they made and in relation to the difficulties that they're going through right now. Honorable Kasim Sawatandas, as you tell us what the Hustler Fund then would be, because I'm believing that after the handshake, joining in to this team or, you know, you coming together to form Kenya Kwanza, there must have been a broad background check and proper understanding of what they bring on the table and what you bring on the table. And you say, this is a coalition of like-minded fellas. Just exactly what is the Hustler Fund? As you tell us, what are the possibilities that these birds, these same monkeys that we've had for the longest of time, then are going to bring this change to the people of Kenya?
Well, Linda, I will take an exception on your last statement about the same monkeys who have always been there. Kenya has a history, and I think this is where it has taken us. I kept saying that Kenya, first and foremost, has a history that Kenyans make their own decisions right from the beginning. And I kept reminding the outgoing president that we have a history in Kenya that whoever is sponsored by an outgoing president doesn't succeed. That has come to pass. Now we come to the next history, that it has also shown in Kenya that it is totally different when one is a deputy president and when one is a president. And we read this from the Kibaki era. During Kibaki's time, the economy, during Moi's time, the economy went down. And Kibaki was there, but he would literally do nothing. The moment he was sworn in as the president, we all agree, even for some of us who never voted for him then, we still agree that he took this country to another level economically. Now, the agenda of Kenya Kwanza, right from UDA, ANC, when we came together and formed Kenya to form Kenya Kwanza, it has been about the economy. It has been about the economy. When we talk about pesa mfukoni, that is where we are. And essentially, that is what we are talking about, the Hustler Fund.
And when members of parliament are saying that they also need to enjoy about 100 million of Hustler Fund, just what exactly what exactly do they mean? Hustler Fund then is supposed to go to the members of parliament whom we all understand their duties as enshrined in the constitution?
You see, Linda, there is a total misconception, and I think you actually know the truth.
Yes.
That even when it comes to the CDF does not go to the member of parliament.
Yeah.
I'm not a member of CDF. I can repeat that 1,000 times.
Yes.
No member of parliament is a member of CDF. We actually do oversight on that fund.
Yeah.
There is a committee which is not nominated by the member of parliament. The CDF sees the committees. Let nobody imagine or think that I'm going to nominate that committee.
Yeah.
No. These people do applications through the county commissioner's office. They are interviewed and shortlisted and taken to the board and finally brought to parliament for either parliament to approve their names or not. So it's purely oversight. So this misconception first with the NG-CDF, I think it's high time we also go over it. Now, when we talk about the Hustler Fund going to the constituencies, we are simply saying that we nataka pesa mashinani. We want that money to go to the basics, to go to the lowest point.
Okay.
From the constituency, of course, I have 5 wards. When money comes to my constituency, it goes to the 5 wards. It doesn't remain at the constituency headquarters to do what? That is what we are talking about. But to me, I agree with the constitution. The role of the member of parliament is oversight, and that is what we should be doing. You have been to my house, to my home, yes, Linda, personally, and you've seen the people who come to my home, not to the office, to my home with their personal problems. So when it comes to the representative who actually knows firsthand the problems of the Mwananchi, it is the member of parliament. And this happens all over. It is just not in Matuga, it happens all over. So when it comes to this fund, it fits well from the member of parliament's office to oversight this fund, because these people always come to us. We know them. But our role, of course, it is oversight, just the same way as the NG-CDF. Whether we can get this money within the next 1 week or so, I think we need to be realistic. The budget was already done. We know we can put that money in a supplementary budget because the budget we did in the 12th parliament, I know, did not put that money because we were not in power then. But the reason that you actually go for power is to implement your policies. Though this one shall be implemented 100%. And we can do that through a supplementary budget, which is within the law. Of course, we also need some infrastructure in terms of managing this fund. Linda, we have so many funds. We have youth fund, we have women fund, we have Uwezo fund, we have NGAP. There are so many funds down there. So this time around, with the kind of thought process that we've undergone prior to saying that we are now going to have the Hustler Fund, of course, there is also some infrastructure in terms of human resource, in terms of how it's going to be managed, in terms of how it's going to be distributed. We don't want to go back to the same cycle of saying there is money, but still Mwananchi is not getting it. This time around, we are not going to allow that. So there is going to be some bit of time, but overall, that is the way to go. It's going to be implemented. We are going to perform our oversight role, and we want to pass some Fukoni as soon as possible to the Mwananchi. I believe everybody who cast his or her vote for Kenya Kwanza government, alicast akijua there is money that is going to be in his or her pocket.
Yeah.
Kama hana pocket, itakuwa kakibeti. We need to change our lives.
Muhimu ni kwamba what next after they get all this money?
Yeah.
And yes, we'll be coming to that to understand what some of the projects that are going to be steered by the Kenya Kwanza government. Because you see, it's one thing to have this person having money, but it's another to make them generate revenue such that it's a flow of money into their pockets, into different pockets and all that. So we build a strong economy, because that's the main focus of the Kenya Kwanza government. Mheshimiwa, allow me to shift gears a bit and take us to the international scene, because we also understand very well that how we're going to relate with the international scene will be very, very important. I don't know whether you've seen one of the stories that we've carried this morning. And yes, political commentator, one of the chiefs that are respected in the country, argues that he believes the West really were in support of the Ruto presidency, perhaps because at some point in time he's showed the interest of ebbing off the Chinese, from the country, and therefore they have also come in to support him so that they also get to weaken this influence that China has really managed to garner across the different parts of Africa. First of all, bits of a change and a new reign and dawn in the United Kingdom. What to expect, because we all understand of what is in the Commonwealth countries and the relations that we have had and are looking forward to have. And I'm asking you this, Mheshimiwa, because I understand that you've also served in a capacity at the level of the United Nations.
Okay, I think yes, local politics, especially in developing countries, is driven by developed countries. Fast backward, before any government institution had a Land Rover, you remember? From the police to the hospitals, ambulances, then there was that shift.
Yeah.
Lots of arguments. Toyota probably more reliable. There used to be a different model, a Chinese, I can't remember the name. So by and large, if you look at that, if you look like the Commonwealth countries within even the East African region, all of them ordering Land Rover. It was creating jobs in the UK, it was improving on the economy, the relationship. So through the shift, and we've seen it in the last few years, there's been more trading with the Chinese. We've gone the Far East. So I guess the interest, and again, looking at Kenya geographically, it's very strategic logistically in terms of international business. So if you found that most of the business have been done with the Far East, then yes, that gave a very good basis for the international community, especially from the European side, to try and work with Kenya and ensure that, look, they'll work with someone who probably could shift the business to their side. So I guess, and you'll see more and more of this, you'll see more probably grants coming in from the European Union, from the British as well, who actually have also broken away, the Brexit.
Yeah.
So you'll see more and more of that support to the government. But I mean, it's not rocket science. It's very clear. If if you've understood the international dynamics in terms of business, every developed countries, especially when you go back and say this was our colony and we did this amount of business, and now things have shifted. So you'll see more and more now footprints of the European, those who had gone back, you'll see them probably coming back. You'll see more of the old, the Norwegian, the Scandinavians also coming back. And you'll see more and more of Chinese now sort of fading out. Yes.
Okay. All right, Mheshimiwa Jimmy Gakuya, then we come to you. Perhaps just to get, just have some cue from what the papers detail this morning. One matter that is captured right here, Deputy President William Ruto categorical that he will not be in the business of handshakes. And, we also understand that he has enjoyed a lot of support from very many Kenyans. And therefore, if he is to start, thinking of forming government and, awarding and rewarding loyalty, then he has to start from within. And therefore, any forms of handshake would, in a huge way, disadvantage those ones that sit from within. Of course, the likes of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, his is well articulated, and those ones that come from the ANC side and other parties that sit within Kenya Kwanza. But even before it gets to that, what then is left of the Azimio bigwigs that are literally staring at a life out there in the cold, the likes of Madam Gilu, who shelved their, gubernatorial interest with the confidence that they are going to form government and that perhaps she would find way to one of the ministerial positions.
Thank you, Rita. Coming to your question, first and foremost, let us agree that, in fact, in a competition, whether it's a football match, you must expect a winner at the end of the day. And let me tell you, it has not been a good example in matters that actually our country has been taking positions in our election, where at the end of the day, you realize that actually the loser does not concede in that particular exercise. And forcing some chaos at the end of the tail end, and forcing for those kind of arrangement of national accord or handshakes. I think it was not a good example. It is very important for the essence, because the Constitution expounds and illustrates that actually what is required in competition. And that's why you are being allowed, as much as you have complied, it does not matter the number. It matters the qualifications and compliance to that particular position. So at the end of the race, allow the majority who have decided the way forward to have at least to have their mantle, and the loser as a minority to still have their say. And I believe that, in fact, I know there are serious number of people who had a lot of expression on the other side of opposition. Position might not be there, and the president-elect has made it very clear that actually issues to do with handshakes, he does not believe in them. I support that particular direction, because for sure, if the other team could have won, and at least that particular win upheld by our apex court, then they have no business. And I think the business remaining is that let the other side, because in the House there is no opposition. Only what we have is majority and a minority. And there are positions which are very clear in our standing orders, in our constitution, where they will enjoy either minority and the rest, the positions that are required. But I can tell you for sure, whether Big Wings has lost, I can tell you, it's important to understand that it is the threshold that at least costed them. Because if they have attained the threshold, they could be enjoying the reaps of the new government.
Honorable Gakuya, we're talking about Kenyans that are split in half in terms of they voted, and a majority of others really who did not turn up to vote, but are equally staunch supporters of the Azimio side. One would be, put to imagine perhaps President Kenyatta really did not, wish for a handshake. Perhaps that's the reason why the DP in totality is against this. But the situation him to that direction. And therefore, when we're looking at a country that is split into two, half or close to a half, you know, if it all is a half, then it's about 55 and 45, or so to speak. Do you suppose that Deputy William Ruto maintains that he might not require a handshake? There are instances where the situation would push him to that direction. It needs to be remembered that the Right Honourable Raila Odinga has not agreed in totality to the ruling, and therefore has advised his supporters, saying that we will advise you on the way forward. And you never know with what Right Honourable Raila Odinga would do. Do you think at some point in time your government will be pushed to a direction whereby they'll have to have a truce? Some form of truce.
Linda, I'm yet to see a situation where one would actually agree that I lost and lost fairly. A few instances have been there, but in most cases, we end up with a situation, even from the parliamentary level, and we are all here, 3 MPs elect. Those who came number 2 and number 3, sometimes we even have a number 5 who still claims that the votes were stolen. Okay. And it never says, you know. So we are used to that kind of talk at the political arena, at that level. And when it comes to Baba, then he has a history. I don't want to go into that. It will be rubbing maybe and kidonda nitakuwa nakikwangura sana. But the reality, everybody has his history. So for him, he has a history of not agreeing to results for as long as they are not in his favor. Now, let's go to the Kenyan, the ones you are saying they are split. Linda, I think that is also history. If Kenyans were split the way you are trying to say, then we would have seen this when the results were announced, based on our history, that whenever results are announced, Kenyans will always go to the streets for those who don't agree with those results. But basically, it was calm, meaning that Kenyans now are getting over that issue of getting split between 2 parties or between 2 individuals or whatever formations. Now, we waited, breath, Apex Court, the Supreme Court, the judgment. What happened? It was shaming that the international media came not just to announce the winner, that the Apex Court has either upheld or has said not, but to report chaos. You know, people were expecting chaos. The moment now they're saying we are upholding. What happened? Kenyans went calm. So that issue, that the country is divided in half simply because people voted either way, that one is gone. And that then removes the issue of a handshake. For what? You see. Because
they say, you know what they say.
Right now, Kenyans are moving on with their business. You see, and I think that is the most fundamental.
The vision that is silent, perhaps, is even worse. They say.
No, let's not imagine something which is not there. It has manifested.
The numbers have spoken, Honorable Kasim Sawatandaza. We are looking at this in relation to the numbers of the election. If at all, you know, what it is that we were given was credible enough, and I think you would say it is credible enough because you sit in this winning team, and therefore perhaps to have you, Honorable
before Kai will respond.
Yes.
Let me just add the line there and just make it clear that in fact Kenyans have matured.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this particular election is historic. That actually the way that Tandaza has explained is how it is.
Yeah.
And I can tell you for sure, it's only leaders who can incite for violence. Because Kenyans have shown very clearly they are not ready for it. Yes. But I can tell you, anybody who may not be putting the interest of the country first may bring back those chaos by inciting Kenyans. But I'm telling you, as we speak, Kenyans are ready to move forward.
Well,
if you give me just 1 minute, just give me 1 minute, Linda. You know, let's not take us back to the chaos that we imagined or we wished for, because like other people were hoping that there is going to be chaos. Even when the results were announced at the Apex Court, what happened in Kisumu, you see? Because if we are talking about the Kenyan split, then we would say there is a particular region where it's not just a split, but probably up to 98% or 95% those who lost. But what happened there? Kenyans have moved on, Linda. Yeah, Kenyans have moved on.
And you know, I am trying to look for a story.
Period.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for a story that I've seen this morning as to what, growth in terms of maturity we witness in the likes of Kondele. But yes.
Linda, allow me to come in here and just talk to my two colleagues.
Yeah.
William Ruto is not the president of Kenya Kwanza.
Yeah.
William Ruto is the president of the Republic of Kenya.
Exactly. Yes.
And I don't know how many of you have reached out to your competitors. I've called about 5 of them, starting from the 2nd to the 5th one. It's majority, number 1. Number 2, we might be on the other side of the divide, but you're still useful. Politics is only, voting is 1 day in a calendar in every 5 years. I am sure even persons sitting on the Azimio side, there are those who could be useful for William Ruto to run this country and the region at large. So as much as we are saying there will be no handshake, my very humble view, this is the President of the Republic of Kenya. If there's an opportunity, not handshake per se, but there are people on the Azimio side with different qualities. We've talked of from the Moi's days where we've had Kenya being the arbitrator. We've had someone like Kalonzo playing that very good role. And if Kalonzo can play that role, an example, and not that I'm urging for him or anything, but we still have people on the Azimio side that will be very useful. They will enrich, they'll bring a lot of synergy in President William Ruto's administration.
Would they do that? Can they do that while on the opposition side? And we have seen how opposition has been instrumental.
It can be a Kenyan role, like an example, creating peace in the region. The problem in the belt in the Congo region.
Yes.
Someone would play that role probably from the Azimio side, but it's representing Kenya, not going there as Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, but Kenyan. So if there are such opportunities, then to me is a time to say, look, the elections are behind us. Let's focus on the bigger picture. In any case, 5 years is not a very long time. And that also helps to heal the wounds. It helps to bring more cohesion. So we should not lock doors and say, look, there is no handshake. We're still Kenyans. You'll meet in church. You have to shake your hands. There are situations where you'll need some expertise from people also on the other divide. So most important is politics come and go, but we still remain as a nation. And as leaders, we should not say, no, these guys were on the opposite side. No, we need to keep talking. We need to keep the conversation going. That's my point.
What I can say, because I just want to put my statement on that.
Right.
I think the head of state was very clear by his inauguration statement. Because actually, at one moment, he was asked by one of the media how he's intending to go forward with a minority in the House and why he has started poaching. But he was very clear that most of the candidates that were elected in Azimio probably were there because of it. But their hearts inside, they were not there. And that's why you have seen most of them crossing over. And no, that door is not closed. Even going forward.
Why would it be closed for Right Honourable Raila Odinga if it is not closed for these people who are members of parliament, are on other cadres of leadership? Why would it be closed for the likes of Right Honourable Raila?
And Raila should be the first person to say, let me go and salute the president-elect.
Okay.
And then from there, even I can alluded the head of state saying that, yes, I will call my strongest opponent, who's Raila Odinga. Then we have a tea and then think on how, and that is the punctuality of democracy. I think that's how we should move on. And for sure, as we Honorable Ruto is expected to form his government, and especially the cabinet and the rest, the constitution is very clear that he must put strike balance in all the regions, whether those regions voted for him or not. So it is his duty to make sure that he brings the country together and making sure that the sharing of that cake will be able to enrich every corner of this country. And going forward, that's the only way we can have unity. But my question, my point is, let us not allude ourselves to go back, because already the elections are passed. Let us not start poisoning Kenyans any longer. Let us show Kenyans a maturity of democracy and move forward.
All right, allow me to introduce another guest that we have this morning. As earlier mentioned, we're expecting Unchari Oyeo, who's a political commentator, equally an expert on questions of matters governance. And it's good to have you this morning alongside the gentlemen that are going to be sitting in the 13th Parliament. And therefore, I'd want to wish that, you have a couple of questions for them moving forward. But on this question that the president-elect puts categorically, he says that we are not going to be in this business of the handshake. We are coming at a political scene where really the handshake is not because, they really want to handshake, but, the situation pushes into that direction. 2007, 2008 post-election violence really got us having a handshake that wasn't intended to be there. Same applies to what happened with the 2018, the March publicized March 8th, handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Perhaps not what the president envisioned, but because he wanted the country to forge forward, he had no choice. We're looking at the numbers of the general election, which in most cases we'll be referring to when we look at the matrix of politics in the country. And equally looking at the space that we are in, we have constantly said that we are at a space where it's hard for one to go with one party and successfully win an election. And that is why we form coalitions, we form alliances, and true to it, the next government is going to be formed on basis of an alliance, yeah? Yes. How proper would it be for this side that is going to be in government to consider a possibility of a handshake, a simple truce to keep the country in order? Or do you think we are at a space where we can confidently say the country is willing to forge forward with this one side on this side and an opposition?
Thank you so much, Linda, and I'm honored to be in the company of great men who won elections. You guys, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think the president-elect is a modernist politician, and he envisions a climate where the winner is able to form government and the loser is able to keep checks and balances. And close elections happen in so many places. The United Kingdom, that's Great Britain, the US. Sometimes you find the winner winning with 51% and the other side losing with 49%, and they don't go for handshakes. Right. What they do is to make sure the opposition is empowered to keep the government in check. It happens. And then, what we have is a very mediocre history of the handshake, right from the unfortunate incident of 2007, 2008, all the way to 2017, 2018. Right. It becomes an agreement to actually embezzle and run down the country. It's because of the handshake between the president, the outgoing president, and the former prime minister that we lost COVID cash. There were no checks and balances. That is how we got the expressway, which we cannot even explain, and so many other scandals. So what we need is a strong opposition, right, which I'm very sure will be offered by the Azimio side. Hopefully it does not collapse, because there are signs of, disintegration already. And so the handshake shouldn't be there. And I'm glad the president-elect has come out clear and said the business of the handshake should be forgotten completely. Okay. Yeah, so, and as we witnessed just after the Supreme Court, upheld this election as president, Kenyans were very, very contented. There was, for the first time, the Azimio side, the side that has always supported the former prime minister, did not protest. There were no chaos anywhere. Kenyans were happy.
This they say is because there were no orders from above, and that if he decides to say to the streets, perhaps the supporters who are diehards would be
now, there. In 2017, 2018, the chaos was spontaneous. In fact, he didn't have to call for protests. Yeah. People just poured out into the streets and demonstrated on their own. And something else, for the first time, maybe let's say the second time, because in 2002, that is during my high school days, the president who was going out, who was finishing his term, Daniel Moi, supported Uhuru. Uhuru was a project at that time, and they lost. So we have a history of projects supported by the government, losing. Right. It's not a new thing. And fortunately, Moi did not meddle with the election the way the president has done. It's so shameful. And what we need to do is to have this president, after he's gotten to office, to actually establish a commission of inquiry to understand what happened at Bomas. All these guys from the military, the likes of Tuju, the likes of Ogeto, going to try to compel. This
is not water under the bridge.
No, it's not done. It has
gone to the level of the Supreme Court, and there is a determination that has been made. Why would we want to revive that?
For purposes
of posterity?
For purposes of avoiding it, that kind of, it's a shameful thing to want to compel the chairman of IEBC to declare someone else who's not reflected by the results. It might happen again if it's not investigated. Not necessarily to have these guys prosecuted, but for us to know the truth.
Before we come to you, Mheshimiwa.
And it's not just the guys who went to bomb us to try and compel Chebukati to declare Raila president-elect, but also the 4 fake commissioners who were part of the process all the way to the end.
You cannot declare them fake. They have been, they have gone through the due process for them to be commissioned.
I think you had the ruling of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
They were actually admonished for the mediocre behavior.
Yeah.
They were part of a process all the way from the start to the last minute. Then they felt like, now, we are Enzos, let's go out and condemn the same process we've been part of. So we just need to have clarity on what happened. This can happen again, and we should be able to avoid that. Just like what happened in the US when Trump was not willing to accept the results, and then it's like he wanted to mobilize supporters and, be declared president by force. So we have to have a commission to investigate what happened, and Kenyans need to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable, you have some...
Yes, just to bring something in perspective, I think the issue of handshakes has been misconstrued in this country. But if you look at it globally, from a developed society perspective, handshake does not mean that the government goes to bed with the opposition. Now, when I was talking about His Excellency William Ruto not being a Kenya Kwanza president, I'm exactly saying that reaching out, or the other side also reaching out, is just to ensure that things are done, an example from a nationalistic perspective.
There's quite a thin line on this, as well as losing the opposition side, and we have seen that with the previous government, and he will tell us why it is very important for us to have an opposition.
Opposition is important. It's very, very important. We have to check the government of the day, to keep them on toes. But, when we talk handshake now, every Kenyan thinks that immediately there's an handshake. My perspective is handshake is not the opposition crossing and saying, look, everything that is said by the government, it's yes, let's go, let's go. No. It means that working together, if there are issues of national importance, they are tackled, as Kenyans. Appear as an example. Because if you look at the way it is right now, you'll find that maybe from the Azimio side, there might be maybe a national function and they'll not show up. Because there's that bad blood.
What the president-elect has said is not good enough to confirm to them that we need to forge forward as a nation, in as much as we're going to have opposition that is, and he categorically states this, we need to be put to, check, to account and all this. That's perhaps why we need an opposition, and acknowledges the fact that I'm going to call Right Honorable Raila Odinga after this, which I want to believe that he did. Is that not good enough to confirm to us that the president-elect is willing for us to forge forward as a nation?
I'm trying to put that perspective to my colleagues. The perception of handshake, meaning that the Azimio side will cross and there'll be no opposition, that should not be the case.
Mheshimiwa Kaikai, we've said we have a history of this country, and you've stated it clearly that the history of this country, when we talk about a handshake, it means joining the government, you see. And I don't know at what point you, as a member of parliament, we are going to be sworn in tomorrow, you are going to move a bill to change that perspective that a handshake does not mean joining the government. It has always been the case. That is what you are talking about essentially. Any person outside listening, he knows that you are actually moving towards Kenya Kwanza, and you are welcome very much. I think so.
We take a short break and then we come back on that. Gentlemen.
Just give me 1 minute, Linda.
No.
But we have to take a quick short break, and then we come back on that.
Yeah, we will.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
know what's happening around you. Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Watandaza, and also political commentator and governance expert Onchari Oyeyo, as well as staunch politician in this very country. And so trying to decipher on what we expect for the 13th Parliament, but most importantly, what we expect of the Kenya Kwanza government, if it's a Kenya Kwanza government. I don't know whether it is or it's a UDA government. You will be telling us, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
But yes, to Honorable Kaikai,
yeah.
With you're so silent. What is happening? You're waiting for them so you can throw the bombshell.
You know, you are very valid.
All right, let's allow him to say something, then we come back to you. All right.
You see, Mheshimiwa Kaikai, we have moved on. And this is the lesson that our leaders, including me as a leader, should appreciate. That the mentality that we've always had, that without so and so as a person, you see, here we're not talking about a party, or because somebody changes a party and he moves with all the people to the new party and to the next and to the next. So it's not about a party, it is about a person. This idea, or which we've actually had to believe that this country cannot move forward without a particular individual. I think this is what we should appraise, that Kenyans have moved on. If leaders think that we are still there, then pole sana, Kenyans have moved on. We've come to believe that this country, without the Mois, without the Kenyattas, without the Railas, then there is no country. Kenyans have moved on. And that is what was shown on was it the 5th, when we had the Apex Court decision by Kenyans, not by the leaders. The leaders were still bitter up to, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, when the outgoing president came into the national tally. He was still bitter, not knowing that Kenyans have moved on. It's so unfortunate that he's bitter alone. And if we think that he's bitter with the Kenyans, then that is the problem. So the most important lesson here, Mheshimiwa Kaikai, is that now, going forward, we are not going to look at an individual and equate that individual with a country called Kenya. The individual can keep to himself. If he has a family with the same thoughts, he can keep that to himself. But now we are saying every Kenyan is a Kenyan. And I started by saying the most important lesson that we had in this election, that every vote counted right from the polling station. So now it is up to the leaders now to either change to where the Kenyans are and know that Kenyans now have reached a situation where they're saying they can do without them as individuals, or remain thinking that without them Kenyans will not move, Kenya will not move on, and we've moved on. And I think that's the most important thing. We are not saying as Kenya Kwanza or us in government now that we are not going to greet somebody who has been in Jubilee or greet somebody. We are friends, we are family friends, we are business partners, you know. But the most important thing which everybody, the leaders should learn, is we've now moved from that personality cult that Kenya without so and so cannot move on. That's what happened. That's what has been happening. I think to me that is the summary of it all.
All right.
I am overseeing a scenario
whereby
maybe by December, Azimio as a component or as a fraternity is going to crumble.
Is it?
This for sure, I can assure you. You know, as we speak, there are those parties that are still tied in the Azimio by the agreement on papers.
Yeah.
But they have totally switched their origin from there and have moved on. And by December, I can tell you, you'll be shocked.
Is that not a fear that...
leader, I can tell you for sure. There is one now, Kalonzo Musyoka, who is now left in cold. And I am sympathizing with him because of making wrong choices. Because actually I was just about to say Kalonzo is crossing, but at some point, he was not sure whether to cross or whether to get back. Okay. But for sure, if Caroso is wise enough, he must ride with the team because actually he's a Kenyan, he's a great man of this country. And I think there is of no need being left out.
So handshake or no handshake, we risk a scenario where we're not going to have an opposition. Because if everybody then swims with the tide to this other side, then what?
What I can tell you, we have the team in the House, which is minority team, and the majority team.
But the minority
and they will prosecute. They will prosecute. What here we are saying?
Eventually, there will be some.
Let me tell you
yeah?
for sure. There is no, as Tanda has explained it very clearly. There will be no those elements of handshakes. So there will be monetary force by Kenya Kwanza team to at least molest people that they must vote make their votes on a particular direction. But in this particular parliament, will be the best parliament that actually members will be voting using their independent mind. And I can tell you for sure, if that one will be will be a change in our floors of the House, then we will be progressed very much. And I can tell you for sure, this country has gone through this tedious process, and the maturity we have shown the world, I am telling you, is only leadership or leaders who can spoil what Kenyans have decided. And let me tell you, by the time that in fact the Apex pronounced their final verdict, Kenyans were happy. And that's why chaos were never in region in this particular country. So I will urge the Rusa, who in particular is Honorable Amoro Odinga, and her deputy, and the rest of the team. This is high time they must also become part of Kenyans who has already made clear that actually they are not after any chaos, they need to move forward. Even themselves, let them show that particular face to Kenyans that actually the time has come. Let us forget about the past. You know, Orengo and the team, even the Honorable Laira Omoro Odinga, stated that actually he accepted the verdict of the Apex Court, but he does not agree with it. At what point shall we trust our institutions? Do you expect that actually there has to be an angel to maneuver or to coordinate the elections so that at least it must favor you? Do you think that we should put in our society angels so that they can make every decision pro you? No. When those men and women are trusted in their offices and actually they have followed the law to the letter, also be soft in your heart.
You know, I would have agreed with you on Chari, and based on Mheshimiwa's argument, to the fact that I would have disagreed that perhaps we need to go back and try and find out why we had these key figures, that is at the level of the police, you know, key figures in the country trying to reach out to Chebukati at a certain time. But when I'm looking at this, you know, declarations that have been made, or maybe, you know, that aspect of them just trying to imagine, envisioning of what is going to be of Azimio, say by December and all that. And you have also articulated that there's some disquiet within, and therefore possibilities of a shift are pretty much high. We have already started seeing the shift with independent candidates to align with the agenda of Kenya Kwanza. We have seen ably some others that have categorically switched, the likes of the Uganda Member of Parliament, to say that I want to align with the agenda of Kenya Kwanza. Would want to believe that this is illegal in the first place if we are to look at you know, Political Parties Act and some of these things that are enshrined there. And we risk a scenario that played out sometimes with the 13th Parliament. And we all saw that there was UDA. And I mean, this Mheshimiwa was here were telling me that they are Jubilee, but they are UDA in heart. And you know, that got me worried, because then we could have been calling for by-elections left, right, and center, which did not happen. Yes. The fact that we did not address this would come back haunting us again, a possibility of the same with the 13th Parliament?
Well, that is a possibility. Maybe right off, let me say this. There's what we call movement. You shift completely from your political party, you join another one.
That's a total defection, which is now wrong.
That is what's declared illegal.
Okay.
But then again, to declare affiliation is allowed. That's okay. Okay. It does not mean you decamp from your party, then you join. So like MDG saying we're going to be working with Kenya Kwanza is totally acceptable. It's illegal. It happens all over, and it's allowed within the constitution. if you can allow me, there's a gentleman called Maisori and he says I say hi to Mheshimiwa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, he says you're a good man and I also want to believe you're a good man. He said,
I think I can attest to that. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure you know him.
Except he doesn't want handshake, so.
Yeah.
Now that's the only hardcore stance about him, yeah?
Yeah, so what's happening is, I don't expect people to actually move completely from the political parties to join Kenya Kwanza. And what is happening because of what Mheshimiwa said again. The politics of personalities, the deification of dynasties, and then of course the shameful conduct of the outgoing president. And Kenyans of goodwill, Kenyans who understand governance, Kenyans who understand mature politics, condemned the whole business of BBI from the time it was initiated. But then, you know, the media could not listen to them. When it comes to statesmanship and you want to bring the country together, you don't divide people. You realize the president actually kicked out the deputy president and brought in Raila. So it was a zero-sum game. You bring in 50% and you send away 50%. He never considered the fact that the deputy president comes with a very, very huge chunk of votes or support. Rift Valley, talk about his own Mount Kenya backyard. So when he sent him out and then he talked of BBI uniting Kenyans, it was silly. Politically it was silly because that's why actually it failed.
Okay.
What he could have done was to raise...
Mheshimiwa here was for the BBI.
Well, in a way, the idea was good. The execution was very mediocre.
Okay.
What he should have done was to bring all these guys together and tell them, you know what? The country is fractured. We want to bring it together. And I want to rise above everyone else. If you guys want to vie in 2022, I'll not be there. But I want us to sit on a common table of brotherhood. He brings Raila, Ruto, Musyoka, Musalia, all of them. They come up with a good law. And then from there, in 2022, he didn't have to endorse anyone. You see now he has egg all over his face. He's embarrassed. He addressed the nation without mentioning a president who won elections. And one of the reasons why Azimio is scrambling is because it was built on quicksand. Most of the guys in Azimio, as I think it's Mheshimiwa who said, were compelled to join because of the fear of prosecution, all this nonsense he has presided over. It's been so shameful. Actually, when he got to office, some of us felt like he was a statesman and they knew what governance was all about. Apparently, it does not. Look at the speech, 7-minute rant he offered after the Supreme Court made its declaration. That was embarrassing. Yeah. You see? And it does not, you know, when you, the law of holes, when you're in one, stop digging. He's going down that very shameful hole. So as he goes out with a cloud of shame on his face. That is something the former President Kibaki did not have. That is something even Moi did not have. And one of the reasons why guys are running away from Azimio is because of the advantages Raila had to win an election. He had the government, there was money. They even had this shameful thing of a million a plate fundraisers. A lot of money was raised. So these MPs who got elected after struggling so hard, and Azimio asking if all this money was raised and you guys didn't have money to raise, to pay even agents, why should we stay with you? So there's all this shame, and that's why Azimio is going to collapse. Now, the person to blame for the failure of Azimio, of course, is the president. He promised the former Prime Minister, Lord, I think he was even telling him we're going to be using the police, NIS agents, and even the army.
The deep state.
To rig elections for you.
Right.
So Raila slept and expected to just be sworn in. That's why you saw all that nonsensical, embarrassing things happening at Bomas, trying to compel Chebukati to declare Raila president-elect without votes, because the time when they were supposed to collect votes had passed. So going forward, the opposition has to be there. Now, the nature of the opposition that is going to be there is yet to be defined because Azimio is crumbling day by day. I don't think Musyoka is going to be comfortable in Azimio. You see, he's taken his name to, to the
speaker position, yes.
And I'm thinking Marenda is the candidate who's going to be endorsed.
Successful, is it?
Marenda has also picked papers.
One of them is in Senate and the other one is in
Senate and National Assembly.
Yeah. So they're not going to be working together because I think he also feels cheated. There was a lot of pressure for Raila to pick Musyoka as the running mate because the vote from Mukambani was assured. But then, because of some funny pressure, he was left out. So I don't think he's going to be comfortable remaining in Azimio. So we don't know the nature of the opposition. And like they've said, Kenyans have made progress. Kenyans have moved on. So for now, Kenyans have gotten to know you don't have to have a big last name for you to win the presidency. Because apparently the president-elect is a son of a nobody.
Wow.
So the Odingas, the Kenyatas and the Mois can take a break and give us a break.
Do we call that a break, or do we call that the end in politics?
Regrouping.
They're regrouping, and therefore it's as good as a break, right?
It's an end of an era.
End of an era, you think?
An end of an era.
Someone told me they have the money, and therefore with the money they will bounce back. Are we still in that space of politics of money?
But I can't tell you the money.
I don't think
there was
so,
no such
because-
big money than when somebody is a sitting president who has a control of everything.
And did not manage to get their candidates.
So I don't think what kind of money do you think that to be corrected to come and confuse Kenyans on their way?
And bounce back.
And then, of course, you know, even as Gideon was beaten as a candidate for Senate, the money was not removed from the equation. He still had the money.
Still had the money.
So Kenyans are also past the business of money. Like, you come in with money and then you win a seat. You can invest and still lose. So that is serious progress we made as a people. And what I'd call upon the president-elect to do is going to be sworn in is to not go against what he has promised. Let Kenyans continue moving forward in terms of democracy. And he shouldn't work so hard to kill the opposition, because I'm very sure the Azimio members of parliament will be very willing to shift. But then they should be supported to remain in Azimio. Yeah, so that we can have a means of checks and balances. Any government which is not kept on toes can mess. It happens everywhere.
You might need to remind them that you've been part and parcel of this campaign, including the bottoms up,
yes,
because they are viewing you as those who are quite...
And Kaguya knows we moved around with the president-elect so many times in his constituency. My brother Tangaza also knows that we've worked with Musalia before.
It's only some faith that made him to go.
Yes, now.
But now
otherwise, yes, he was our man.
But
I'm very sure that, in fact, going forward,
he will come back.
Because he's a wise man. He knows on which way he had to comfort himself in the flow.
Yeah, but the only thing I want to put very clear.
Yeah.
Handshake does not mean that
we're killing the opposition.
You're killing the opposition. Or even if there is no handshake, it doesn't mean that being on the Azimio side, if a bill is brought without even looking at the advantages to the Kenyans, I'll be voting against the bill. No. It might be on that side, but if the bill is brought in the House and it makes sense, it supports the humanitarian component, the needs of the Mwananchi, we will vote for it.
Okay.
That I want to put very clear.
All right, Mheshimiwa, allow me to read this, and I think that's quite a noble thing, because what the people are looking forward today from the members of parliament is such sobriety in how you look at the bills, what has been presented. Is it about the common Mwananchi? And for us to have such sale, not based on party affiliation and all that, I think it would be very beneficial for the common Mwananchi. I rang Honorable William Ruto to congratulate him on the Supreme Court's unanimous decision to uphold his election as the 5th president of Kenya. I look forward to working with him to strengthen our strategic partnership in advancing the East African community agenda. God bless Kenya. Uganda President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. I would like to congratulate my brother William Ruto on the decision by the Supreme Court of Kenya to uphold his election as the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. I look forward to working with you to strengthen the historic bond and cooperation between our two nations. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu. Congratulations to Dr. William Ruto, or Samoei Ruto, on being declared the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. Looking forward to working with Your Excellency William Ruto to strengthen and enhance historical good relations between Zambia and Kenya based on our shared priorities for our two peoples. Zambia President Hakainde Hichilema and many other presidents. President Uhuru Kenyatta's address, as highlighted by Onchari here. Just why? What is so hard about appreciating and telling, this person that has been your friend, congratulations, I mean...
That's why I'm talking.
Good practice would...
Good practice. It demands that even an opponent, you shake hands.
Yes.
And you say it was done. And I repeat, one day in 5 years, that's when we go voting. Elections come and they go.
Yes.
So when it reaches that level, shake hands. And I gave a very good example. All my opponents, I made a call and talked to them. I said, look, it's like a merry-go-round. Today you're the MP, tomorrow it's me, the other person. It keeps going. So I think it's good practice that when there's such a situation, accept it. And very clear, as a Christian also, Romans 13:1, everyone must submit to the governing authorities. And leaders come from God. So when it reaches that situation, accept this is the leader, and we move on. Yes.
And Rida, I can just underline on that and say, the biggest ruler in this particular game is the sitting president. And I can only blame him because wisdom should have led him, and he could have run the signs of the time, and he could have taken part with the signs of the time. Because one thing, the biggest embarrassment is that, in fact, he was the leader and a spokesman of Mount Kenya, and he talked to his people until the last minute, even after the closure of the campaigns. He was in what we call kamemes and those FMs, trying to convince them at the last minute. But inside their mind, they had made their decision. It's only that the head of state was not sure enough that actually these people took a different direction. And therefore, if there is anything which has gone wrong, he can only blame himself and his advisors. Because surely all the signs were on the offing. And actually, a wise person could have learned. When he lost Juja and Kiambaa, he could have started asking himself, what have I done to this team of mine? And from that point, a wise leader could have started now mending the fences. And he could be able to bring Mount Kenya back to him. But at this moment, he was very, very sure that actually he will force his project to attain. But surely Kenyans did brought the rainbow and said no. As we are not on that direction, kindly, we have shown you that our minds are set and we are heading to the west, not east. Yes, so the head of state, I'm sorry, that actually it is done. Whether you want to congratulate the president-elect or not, things will still move on. And the Constitution of Kenya, I can say that, in fact, it is quite paramount that actually there is nothing short. Even though he may decide not to go to Kasarani, the exercise will still move on. Yes, it will still move on. And the president-elect will be sworn in. So, at this particular point, I think if your neighbors have already congratulated the president-elect, why not yourself? I think that's a serious point.
I will not ask you anything about that because, I mean, it's in black and white.
Yeah.
I hope he's going to make his congratulation statements perhaps tomorrow in Parliament or maybe during the moment of swearing in.
Well,
or maybe
he's not going to be in Parliament tomorrow, as per
yes.
Yeah, he's not going to be in
We might
Parliament.
need to get that clear, by the way.
Yeah.
But he has gazetted. It was his duty to make sure that there's this gazettement.
He has done his part.
He's done his part. Okay.
And that is all.
Yes.
He's not going, he has no opportunity
so
to
who is
address
in Parliament tomorrow?
The first person who will have to make a national address in Parliament would be Dr. William Samoei Ruto.
Okay.
That is why I'm insisting that we've moved on. Okay. He should also appreciate that he has moved on. And then when he's so angry on national telly, I think it's so shameful on the if we actually goes back to numbers, that even from his own polling station in Kiambu, in which village, you know that?
Kiambaa.
No.
Ishaweri.
Yes. You see, yeah, his own village, his own polling station, Ishaweri. In my village, basically, we are more or less relatives, and it happens almost all over that in a village. When you come from a village, you happen to be more or less related, you see. So now he's angry to his own people in his own village. You know, that is what Kenyans should now be asking themselves, you see. Where is he going to have a local chat in his village? Because these are people who are even told him, no, we are not with you, the majority of them, you see. And I think, to me, the most honorable thing is to move on. And the beauty about Kenya also is that we have a history of treating our retired presidents in the best manner that can possibly be, you see. Despite all the acrimony, even during the swearing in of Mwai Kibaki at was in Nyayo Stadium that time, Uhuru Park at that time. After that, Kibaki treated Moi in the best possible manner that there was until he went to see his Lord. Now, and it has come when Kibaki also retired. I don't know why he's really bitter or agitated. We don't have a history of going after our retiring presidents in Kenya. We build them mansions, we give them even more than what they deserve and whatever. And this is what is going to happen to him also. But I think the lesson that we have going forward, and this is a lesson not only for the retiring president now, but even for us in Kenya Kwanza, I think even us, we are learning going forward with Dr. William Samoei Ruto. After his 10 years, he should also not imagine that he's going to determine who the next president will be. To me, this is very fundamental, you see. From where Kenyans are now, it is quite open that you do your term, we've given you your mandate. Once your term expires, let us decide, you see. Let us decide. So right from this 13th parliament and the 14th parliament, it should be so clear that whoever wants to be the president come 2027, he should start now talking to Kenyans, not talking to either the Mount Kenya Foundation or the Deep State or whoever, or no. That is gone. And to me, that is very important. And that being the case, then it gives us hope. As the president, the fifth president said, that probably now this is the right time that the likes of us, who essentially don't have numbers nationally, but if we can come out and prove to Kenyans that we can lead and have something to offer, then people can vote for us, our vote be counted, and we become president. And I think that way then we are building a great country, a great Kenya, and while Kenyan will be proud of.
Yes, while President Uhuru Kenyatta is exiting the stage, perhaps we'd say as a nation we really then would not require his services. But this president will tell you that in low tones that sometimes they would visit former presidents to just get advice on 2-3 matters. He is the only surviving former president.
Yes.
That is Kenyatta the second. Do you think at some point need will arise when Deputy President William Ruto or President-elect William Ruto will perhaps need to go back to say, my friend, this and that and that. How do I handle this?
Now, thank you so much. I think I like the tone of the elected members of parliament. I think it's going to be great. When I was in high school, I was in a mixed secondary school. So there were 2 girls who I used to like showering. And they used to use a lot of makeup. So, when you have a lot of makeup, nobody will think you do not shower.
Okay.
So in psychology, it's called overcompensation.
Right.
Yeah. So if you've had a shower, you come to class, even if there's no makeup, people will see you've taken a shower. But if you've not, and you do that makeup, people will think, she had to actually shower before using what? Makeup. Now, that takes me back to what the president is doing. There are some mamas that he may have actually played the former prime minister.
Yes.
And in a bid to show that he did not, he has to treat the deputy president, now president-elect, with contempt, even in the open.
Okay.
If it was a normal contest and there's a loser and a winner in a clean way, he could have been so gracious. Like, hey, even boxers beat up each other, there's blood, but they still shake hands. This guy has decided to be so immature and so petty, to a point where a simple sentence of congratulations to Dr. William Ruto, you've won. It was a bitter contest and you've won, you've beaten us. It's very hard for him to do. So someone will argue that he's going on overdrive to demonstrate that he didn't play who? The former prime minister, which is possible.
Okay.
Now, if indeed he did not want Dr. William Ruto to become president, there are so many things he could have done. At some point he could be like a dictator, then at some point he becomes aloof, like he's totally out of touch. He was blowing hot and cold. The president had the means to actually block Ruto from campaigning in Mount Kenya. He did not do that. He had a way to bulldoze BBI. He could have done it nicely. He has all the legal minds around him. It could have been, crafted in the right manner, and it passes. He could have actually even pushed for the Kiambaa seat to be declared for Karidi Nzama instead of Kawanjiku.
Yeah.
He had all those. He had the state machinery to do that.
Right.
So some people will tell you this guy may have intentionally allowed the deputy president, who is now president-elect, to penetrate his backyard. So all these theories point to something. And if there was a game played against Raila, only 2 people could have known it. Otherwise, it could not have made sense.
Him
and Ruto. Because if it could have spilled to all these guys like Matiang'i, Kibicho, and all that, it couldn't have made sense. It could have leaked.
Okay.
And you know, you see what I'm talking about?
Right.
And the votes Raila lost by is very small. It's the most painful loss for the former Prime Minister. He got so close. Now, collecting about 300,000 votes to give Raila the presidency could have been so easy. The government has the network you can imagine, including village elders down there. They could have mobilized, hey, we're losing here, collect these votes for us. And he gets declared president. Instead of this embarrassing nonsense of sending guys to bombers. So there are all sorts of explanations. Now, the president-elect is...
Can we hold the now? Can we hold the now until we come back from...
Okay.
All right. After the short break.
Despite being visually impaired, he is a jack of all trades. It is our quest to find answers on how to take care of children with special needs and those with disability. You do not need to see musical notes to understand music, but rather to have your soul feel the vibe.
Actually, for us to make a wheelchair, we have to take measurements of the user.
After doing my assessment, I get to know the parent, I get to know the heaviness she's carrying.
Disability comes at different stages of life.
Well, do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business. Farming. Tasty Wednesday. Fitness Thursday. And Feel Good Friday. With amazing DJs, celebs.
Waimbaji, kuna comedians.
And music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. The next set of millionaires are farmers. As we know, agriculture has been and still is the backbone of our economy. As we traverse the different counties to meet different farmers, we ensure to get the story of how they started farming.
The president was unable to actually accomplish whatever he wanted. That is why at some point I feel so sorry for the former prime minister. I think he was baited, followed it, and then he was also surrounded by complacent idiots who were not able to put together a team to bring votes for him. Yeah. You saw one of the performers even before the declaration of the results. Here we had a very brilliant and diligent lady by the name Sholei with a laptop full of downloaded from 34As for reference and verification. You see what IEBC has, you compare with what you have, because you could not carry a truckload of from 34As to bombers. Then we had this guy, a total idiot from Azimio, representing Raila as a chief agent with a very shiny watch and a phone. So
are we talking about Saithood?
He admitted later that he was an idiot. So when he sees someone with a laptop, he panics. You see, you cannot. How do you verify Azimio results if you don't have them? It was so embarrassing. So those are the guys who let Raila down. Very, 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 very shameful. So I feel sorry for Raila.
When you say let down, it means that at that very point they were not able to protect the vote, to guard the vote.
They could not even verify anything, they could not question anything. And then something else is this. Stingy people throughout human history. If you are a stingy person, you can never get to leadership.
Who is this stingy person?
These guys they collected so much money, but they didn't have money to give agents. I want you to picture this. Let's say I'm a 25-year-old jobless young man. I've volunteered to work for Raila. I've gone to a polling station. My job is to make sure Raila's votes are being counted. So breakfast around 10 a.m., The UDA
other
guy,
side are going to enjoy their sausages and...
Akona mandazi na chai, and I'm here yawning. He gives me one mandazi. It's UDA Mazimio. Lunchtime, analetewa goat liver and some kaugali. I'm here. So I have to benefit from what he has. By 4, I'm making phone calls to Junet Mohammed. He cannot pick. Edwin Sifuna cannot pick. Saitabao is confused, having a good time somewhere. Nobody's picking my calls. By around 6, votes are being counted. I'm still yawning. Now, if someone shows up and gives me 10,000 to sell Raila's 300 votes, will I say no?
You will sell them.
That is it. So when you're stingy, you have money and you cannot spend, you cannot become a leader.
Gentlemen, the 13th Parliament. Oh, back to you, Mheshimiwa, the 13th Parliament.
13th Parliament is going to be really, really vibrant.
Yeah.
And to me, they are the, experienced colleagues like Ndugusawa here and Bazenga will piggyback on their experience. But at the same time, we are coming from out here with a lot of experience, which I'm sure if we mix our external experience and your experience, I'm sure it will be very vibrant. Also, we've continued to learn personally. Coming in there, despite the fact that I might be on the different formation, I will support the bills that make sense to the benefit of Kenyans. Will not oppose for the sake of opposition. But I guess we're quite excited. We look forward to make it the most vibrant parliament since inception. Yeah.
The 13th, I want to listen from the gentleman first before we come to you,
sure.
Onchari, the 13th Parliament.
My expectation is that, in fact, we'll be having the best parliament we have had there before. Parliament where executive will not interfere with the leadership of the House, and where the elected members can be having an independence, because the Constitution is very clear. It states that we have 3 arms of government, where the Parliament should be independent. The judiciary should be independent.
Mheshimiwa, let me ask this question on that very note. Deputy President William Ruto was part of the executive on the previous parliament. And even at that point of, us witnessing the factions within the Jubilee Party, still he had some say with the supporters like you, that were within parliament, in the sense that what he says is what you really tried your level best to execute at that level of the parliament. What makes you think that this time around he will not try to twist or perhaps just try to push you into, advancing his very own agenda, if not that of the executive?
I can tell you, Rita, that in fact, by the time that I've been with my good president, William Ruto, I have learned that in fact, he's a man of reasoning. And actually, in politics, you don't have to force things to happen. You need to persuade. And therefore, there is an importance of having PGs that were never been there before, and where at least if there is a particular bill or a particular motion that he wants to be taken to a particular direction, he can whip the members for a PG, then you discuss there, and then you, at that point you exchange. So that by coming from that particular PG, you have just agreed that actually the position you are telling us to take is a genuine and important to the nation. And that way, nobody will be pinned or will be seen as forcing himself. The element of whipping in the floor of the House, this is an element that is not going to come to, because the work and duty of the whip is to whip either side. There is those element of bills that may come, and the opposition feels that this bill cannot see the light of the day, and the members will be whipped. But I can tell you, if the parties can leave Parliament to operate independently, then I can tell you things will move well. And then we can be able to help Kenyans even to get into the proper maybe planning of this country. But the parties have been given a lot of powers to twist even members of Parliament, even the whipping, because of a member taking a stand of a particular decision, which is very long, Rida, and I hope this Parliament, those significance will think of the past, and that in fact the parties can be given a freedom to make their choices on the floor of the House.
Honorable Kasim.
Our work is cut out on the 13th Parliament, and I would have wished that we could even start business much sooner. Normally, our calendar, we should be having our first sittings probably in February. But given the workload, the cost of living in this country, to me, the priority of the 13th Parliament is to see how, from the assemblies, we can actually bring down the cost of living of Kenyans. We are looking at the cost of energy, that is power, petrol. We are looking at the cost of the ordinary foodstuffs, the ungas, the mafutas, and all that. To me, that should be the first priority for the 13th Parliament. About the issue of arm twisting, I'm not seeing this happening from the 5th President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. And I'm taking cue from what happened during the BBI voting. We had members who were serious UDA supporters by that time. And even when they had their PG meeting, and some of them said, well, I'm in UDA, but I cannot vote no, because in my county, I'm having extra constituencies that will be beneficial to my people. I cannot vote no, because in this BBI, it outrightly strengthens the devolution. I'm talking especially for us from Coast, who are Majimboist, and Majimboist devolution. And it's bringing more money to my people. He told them, well, if that's what your people want, and that is good for your people, then it's okay. Go and vote yes. And we had UDA members, I don't want to mention their names, but I have their names, on that day of voting, who voted yes, and yet they were in UDA and nothing happened to them. And they had agreed that if it's good for your people, then go that way. And I think that's the way it should be. And Mheshimiwa Kaikai, that is the way it should be. It doesn't matter, even me, who is in the Kenya Kwanza government, if Azimio brings a motion, a bill, which is good for this country, I'll support it. And I cannot see the president telling me you shouldn't support it because it's coming from the other side. No, that's not the standing orders even of the House. As a member of Parliament, you actually go by your conscience and what is good for your people, and that is what I expect to be strengthened even more in the 13th Parliament.
What they've all sworn is that whether declared unconstitutional, and they're trying to tweak, it says the 2015 one that was declared unconstitutional. I know that the CDF funds have to find their way back. I don't know why, but perhaps it's because they feel that this has really been helpful to the people of Kenya. Maybe I pick that, Linda. I think here we are confusing, and it's very simple. Yes. What was declared illegal is the CDF Act. We are operating under the NG-CDF. Yes. Which has not been, it is in court. Because fortunately for the last 5 years I've been in NG-CDF committee, so I could be knowing more than what other members are. Because I sit with the board, I sit with the legal team about the NG-CDF matters. I know the progress of the court matter on the NG-CDF. So there is no debate. It looks positive. There is no debate here that there will be no NG-CDF in this parliament. In fact, the board has already declared itself that we have 44 billion, an increase of about 1.7 billion from the previous year on NG-CDF. So there is no panic here. And should the court even decide otherwise on the current cases on the NG-CDF, which is under operation, it is still within our means to see what is good for this country and what is good for our people. The notion that the NG-CDF is for the member of parliament, I think that is where our biggest enemy is. And you people and the media are not helping us on this, because even as you are talking about it, that's the reason why we're bringing you are referring to it as to trigger this conversation. The NG-CDF and the member of parliament. And I'm quoting Honorable Bissau, and I'm quoting a couple of other members of parliament elect that I've had on set. I think I would propose on the 30th Parliament that whoever will be NG-CDF committee should actually take a serious mandate on educating Kenyans about the NG-CDF Act, because it is the most misunderstood even by the county governments. Yeah, the county governments are also complaining that the NG-CDF is reducing the allocation to the counties. It is not. The NG-CDF, the 2.5% and the 5% proposed, is from the national government. It is after the sharing. This the county government, national government, and then the national government portion is now taken to NG-CDF. But you can see, even county governments are still complaining that NG-CDF money should be brought to
to the counties. Even if it were not to be there, it cannot go to the counties because it's already the national government share.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of misconception about this.
But maybe, Rida, I can just add a small line there.
Yeah.
It just clear that actually media has been totally against this particular fund.
Why should we be against this fund?
No, let me just explain myself.
Which we were why?
Just find out, after every audit report, you realize that if there is issues to respond to audit, that you find that all the papers are enlisting the members of parliament names. Yes, it's as if we are executive in that particular kitty, where we are not, and we are oversighters. Right. How do you just put my name telling me because something went wrong in my constituency under the management of the kitty, that you must point to my name? I have no business with that.
But if you fail to oversight it proper and therefore we do not have accountability, why can't your name and face then be there?
One thing that can you agree, Reader? First and foremost, there is a person who is a fund manager.
Yes.
Why can't you go to the fund manager? Because he is in charge of the kitty as a fund manager. Why must you take the name of the member
Who
of
is
parliament?
not an appointee of the member of parliament. The fund manager is not an appointee of the fund
I want to
manager.
respond to that, but I'll throw it to Onchari to give the response again, or maybe submission on the same.
Well, I think Gaku is not trying to be, it's not honest. At the end of the day, when the man has come to your constituency as a member of parliament,
yes,
you just have to take responsibility. You might not be directly involved, but then you have to find out how it's being used. So anytime the money is misused or misspent, your name has to feature. At the end of the day,
my friend, there are many kitties that fall to my constituency.
Yes.
Why do you refer to me with only the CDF, not Kera, not Kura, not any other kitty?
Okay.
The most recognizable fund
Is there?
Yeah, that is the one we have to actually pay attention to. And it's not uncommon for members of parliament to, of course, misuse the money. At some point, the money is given to relatives, it's given
How?
How?
How do I give the money to a relative?
Now, let's say, you have to, you play a role in getting
because the fund manager has to account.
Who gets the fund manager?
The fund manager has
It's
to
a board. He's an appointee of the board. He's not appointee. You know, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of misconception.
What's the role of? Yeah, that is now. I think he has made a very wonderful suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kenyans have to be enlightened.
Enlightened,
about the money.
yes, that's true.
Because we know some members of parliament. A few days ago, we had a list running around social media about a member of parliament who had appointed the wife as a fund manager.
Yes.
No. A fund manager is a member of the employee of the board.
And then, you know, we followed up. Sometimes, you know, we take time and follow up on these issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we know how some of this money is peddled around. Oh, you given a contender here and all that, with a lot of embezzlement, a lot of corruption. So it happens. So what you do, number one, even as you tell us how the money is spent, make sure you guys also take responsibility. And you know, there's now a sharp focus on members of parliament. Kenyans feel that you guys spend our money on your allowances, obscene allowances, and that kind of thing. Now, with the new president going to be in office, and the way Kenyans have given him serious mandates, you have to also give him a good image. Don't go there and begin, you know, scrambling for the small amount of money that is available when Kenyans are suffering. Just don't do that. And
what was how you know Onchari, please look at it this way. And you know, here, as the Mheshimiwa Gakuya said, sometimes we also, Kenyans are not well informed, and I'm really surprised that you also, as a policy and a government expert, you're not.
But who's then is
the fund manager is an employee of the board. Who? Yeah. The fund manager is an employee of the board. Yes. He does not
and
report
he's a mandatory
we don't pay him.
He's a mandatory
he's the AIE holder.
Yeah.
You see, he's not my employee. Yes. We even don't share an office. You see, when you go to the CDF office, there is the office for Mbunge, Mheshimiwa, and office for the board. We even don't share offices.
Well,
we can even be in different locations.
That we also live here, and we know very well that I can make a phone call to Onchari and tell Onchari, you are my friend.
No, you know, that will go, it's not necessarily because a member of parliament, but
a very good man.
Canvassing is there.
He's a very good man to a point where he wants to actually sell a very naive narrative.
Yeah.
When you're in parliament, this is Kenya, we make phone calls. If I want so and so to be put as a manager somewhere, I make a call. Hey, boss, we came to Fulani. We're here. We see how things happen.
Yeah.
You make a phone call. Hey, boss, can you give some small amount of money to so and so is asking for a tender? We do that all the time. And 90% of the time, it's done in a very opaque manner. Let me use terminology. So we're here. And this corruption takes place right in our faces. We see this. So what we request, and like you suggested, number one, find out how Kenyans can be informed and how this money is given out, who runs it. And of course, as we move forward, we will call upon the DCI to be very vigilant on how CDF is used, so that we don't have reasons to blame
the members
people
of parliament who shouldn't be blamed.
So if Tandaza is clean and Gakuyu is clean, we don't have their names.
And you know, time is moving. We only have like 10 minutes.
Let's agree that corruption is there.
Yes.
Corruption is live in this country.
Yes.
It's not particular about a member of parliament. We are having corruption almost in all offices, in all sectors. Unfortunately, even in the private sector. Unfortunately, even in the NGO world, some of us, as an engineer, have worked across board. In fact, if there is any who have not worked, is in the public service, prayer to being a member of parliament. So I've worked with the private sector, I've had contacts with the NGO world. Corruption is there. A corrupt person is a corrupt person, not necessarily because he's a member of parliament.
Agreed.
So up to that point, we agree. Kenyans themselves are corrupt. You see, Kenyans themselves are corrupt. So I think, Linda, we need another segment to discuss corruption and see whether we get forward.
And see what Kenya Kwanza will do.
The institutions, the government institutions, the DCI, the anti-corruption, ethics and whatever, they are also corrupt. Because those are the people who should be handling. You know, when I say give money to so-and-so in a corrupt deal, that is corruption and is criminal. I should be held accountable as a criminal. But what happens, whoever comes to investigate is also looking for that same money he's given. And it's really sad. But as I said, that's a serious discussion for another day. Otherwise, members of parliament, by law, they actually don't sit on CDF kitty.
Okay.
And finally, Reader, I can just tell you very authoritatively, if our devolved government, counties can work and provide services to the letter down to the common manage, there is no business of these CDFs and everything, and these other things. But since you are a member of the constituency, which has a lot of expectations, and the governors are doing zero, well, what do you want the member to do? A bridge is broken, the governor is nowhere to fix it, so
the next leader in line should.
So should you
wait?
Your people suffering as if you have crossed your eyes? I am saying this kind of kitty can come to an end if.
Then if that kitty is going to address the matter of the bridge, again, is that not a shortfall of the question of accountability? Because when we have the NG-CDF, then we know very well what to do. So how should we shift then that to handle the bridge matter, to handle the road matter, as opposed to security, as opposed to education?
I can tell you for sure. There are those areas that the CDF can only operate on. You can operate the CDF within only two areas, which is education and security. And I am talking of areas of big needs in that particular aspect. You see? But I can tell you, when the bridge or anything else has broken, the member has to go out of his mind to look for any resource elsewhere, not from the CDF, to make sure that actually things are being fixed.
You know, time is moving very
fast. You have to knock many offices.
So what we need to do is this, going forward, and I think we're making progress. The issue of management of resources has to be moved completely from parliament. And that is what's happening in the modern world. We have, now we have under devolution, the county governments to be given money to make sure everything, including education and security, is taken care of by the county governments and to some degree the national government, so that members of parliament can do their business of making laws. That is it. Then that will not find a way of giving meat or cheese to a rat. You know, it's tempting.
It is tempting indeed.
Very tempting.
That is very harsh.
That is why you're here.
Oh, Chiri, that is pretty harsh.
So when you look at advanced or developed democracies like the US, the members of Congress and the Senate basically make laws. When it comes to allocation of resources and execution of services, so delivery of services, we have secretaries who do stuff. Homeland Security, you know, health and stuff like that. So money is not in the hands of the members of Congress. We should make that kind of progress so that if Tandaza is a good man and Gakuyu is a good man and Kakai obviously is going to be a good man.
As a member of NG-CDF, we've been to Denmark in the 12th Parliament. As already said, I was a member of the NG-CDF committee for the last 5 years.
Yes.
So it's not also true that the developed countries do not have a model of devolved funds. I'm mentioning Denmark. We've been there as a committee. They have devolved the funds through their area members of parliament. In fact, when we went to one of the areas we met were the members of parliament, where they also benefit on a similar kitty like NG-CDF. So it is not true that it's only in Kenya or in the undeveloped countries that we have NG-CDF. The problem is how it is managed. And I agree with you. There are good people and bad people. It can happen that the majority, but I don't believe that the majority of members of parliament are actually bad. Because even when you go to the reports of the Auditor General, compare those who have been cited, the constituencies cited having misused the funds, and compare the county government's audit report, and compare the national government report, certainly.
and at the same time, when the constituencies that have handled the CDF kitty proper, we appreciate the members of parliament. So in this case, please allow us as well to question the members of parliament when this kitty has not been used as expected. Gentlemen, we have to close. 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. This conversation of the 13th parliament, we have not captured a quarter of it, and therefore I look forward for us to have another session where we will get into depth, especially after having the speakers already elected, and that should be tomorrow.
Sure.
All right, Mheshimiwa.
Okay. Thanks. Quick one on devolution. We need real devolution. Apart from CDF, also governors should consider ward funds for the MCS, so that we can, that is also to echo the point of Mheshimiwa Tandaza. The other point, and this is a question to my Kenya Kwanza colleagues, you said you don't believe in handshakes. Now my question is, do you believe it's wise for the sitting president to look for the incoming president and extend a hand?
Which he said he's going to make a phone call. Not yet?
I think, you know, it depends on the response. Because I am sure that he cannot... He
might decide not to pick.
He cannot purport...
Nakiwa ni mteja, pengine akipiga.
Mteja kama ile siku ya kwenda kwa swearing.
Ajua kwake nyumbani, aende nyumbani.
No, you don't go to somebody's house when he can't even pick your phone. That is not civilized.
And I think the best way to do, immediately after such a kind of an exercise is over, you need to reach your opponents, like what my Kakai have just stated.
Yeah.
That, you know, the person who is supposed now to wake up and look for Ruto is Raila Amolo Odinga.
Allah.
Yes. Because just to tell him, I congratulate you. Yeah? I congratulate you win. Yes. So that at least going for... Unataka kwa kuniambia ati rais sasa aondoke akatafute Raila kwake?
Makosa.
It's not possible.
Gakuya, I can't see that happening because we now have a Swahili adage. Sijui kama tunaelewa Kiswahili hapo, najua nimetoka kwani. Kuna msemo wa Kiswahili unasema asiyekubali kushindwa si mshindani. Lakini huu msemo umepitwa na wakati in our Kenyan contest. Sasa unasema asiyekubali kushindwa ni Raila. So that can't happen as far as we are referring to.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a history to that point that he can't do that. But to me, I'll want to summarize on the 13th Parliament. One, we are going to have an election of the Speaker and the deputies. Fortunately, Linda, and I can say this without a fear of contradiction, we are going to have the best Speaker and the deputies from the Kenya Kwanza government. Not because it's a contest between the majority and the minority. It will be a contest between the best speaker that we can have, and a contest, as Kaikaya said, between the conscience of the voter of that member of National Assembly. If I compare Weta, and if I compare Kalonzo, if it will be him, who amongst them will be able to manage this house better? I think that's what will be the deciding factor. And so far as we've reached, I'm sure members of parliament will not vote on really party lines tomorrow. They'll be voting with their conscience, taking this country forward. And I think that will be a good start for the 13th parliament.
Well put. A minute to close it for us.
Okay, thank you so much. I've been, part of a nice conversation by guys who've been lucky to be given, a chance to serve. Advice to the outgoing president, he still has a few minutes to redeem himself, to rescue his image. All he has to do is to reach out to the incoming president and try to behave like a statesman. what he has done is humiliating to his family, embarrassing to himself, and he has basically tainted his image. What he needs to know, like Tandaza said, Kenyans have moved on. They don't care anymore. Like it happened in the US, Trump was trying to throw tantrums like a baby. Americans moved on. So it's his duty to actually redeem his image. If he does not do that, it's unfortunate. Now, to the incoming president, he has a chance. Kenyans have come out and supported him, basically from nowhere. You know, he's a child of a nobody, like he has been telling us, and we know that. So he has a duty to go ahead and say thank you to Kenyans. And he's been lucky to have a collection of good men of tremendous character, experience, and goodwill. He reduces hunger prices, he reduces fuel prices, he can deliver, he can say thank you by giving Kenyans the kind of life they've always wanted. It's the first time I think Kenyans have had an emotional election whereby you're going to vote because you want your kid to also have a dream that is validated. So and so came from nowhere and became president. So too, you can also do the same. So he has a chance to do that. And I think from the way he has been crying, you know, I think he remembers his journey and it drives him to tears. He wants to do something. So we'll give him time. So you guys go to parliament, support him, and Kenyans are vigilant. Kenyans are awake. If he messes around, we'll also call him to account.
Well put,
yes.
Gentlemen. Asante sana. Last speaker, Onchario Yeyo, political commentator, also a governance expert. Honorable Kasim Sawa Tandaza, Member of Parliament-elect, Matuga constituency, to officially become Member of Parliament tomorrow, as well as Mheshimiwa Jimmy Gakuya, Member of Parliament-elect, Embakasi North, and Honorable-elect, Member of Parliament-elect, that is Kiminini, Honorable Bisau Kakai. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We close it at that. This conversation continues, and Kazi Yanze, right? All right. After this